Darren, sir, good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, everyone present, General Senthumule. Sorry, I was a bit late.
Okay. I'm handing over to you as the evidence leaders. Do you have any remarks that you want to make?
Honorable Chair, just that fairly late in the day. When was it? Last night or this morning? Last night we were advised of a change in the order of that witnesses will appear. We were expecting Honorable Adams to be first up this morning, and then we only got advised late by Bonani that it will be General Senthumule, which caused a bit of not panic or consternation, but Advocate Mkhize will be leading her. But we are here, and thank you, General Senthumule, for accommodating the late change, and we ready to proceed.
Can you also confirm that the witness that is before us is the witness that the committee expected today?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, the witness is General Hilda Kosi Senthumule. She's been cooperating with the evidence leaders for the past 2 weeks or so, and she's here to present her evidence, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
We can say her in.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Okay. Thank you so much, Advocate Arends, and welcome, General Hilda Kosi Senthumule. Our proceedings here, every time we conduct them, we start by swearing our witnesses. Before we swear you in, let me make the following remarks: that you have been invited here to this ad hoc committee. It's an ad hoc committee appointed by the National Assembly to investigate allegations that have been made by the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Your information or evidence that you provide before this committee will help it in its oversight and investigative role. The allegations include, amongst others, number one, the alleged unlawful disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team, otherwise known as the PKTT or the NPKTT. Number two, the alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the South African Police Services, the SAPS. And number three, alleged corrupt relationship between senior leadership within the SAPS and members of the public. And the last that we investigate is alleged political interference within the work of the SAPS. General Senthumule, in extending the invitation, the chairperson of the ad hoc committee has indicated to you that you may provide such information to the committee if you so wish under oath in terms of the powers, privileges, immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act of 2004. Please be informed that by law, you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to do so in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer of the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or even damages. General Senthumule, you are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or a Committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Please be aware that in terms of Section 17, subsection 2 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, a person who willfully furnishes a house or committee with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence and is liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. You are required to take an oath to affirm that the evidence you are about to give is truthful. Which one do you elect, oath or affirmation?
Thank you, Chairperson. I will take an oath.
Thank you so much. You have elected to take an oath. May you please follow me as I dictate. May you please say I and state your names in full.
I, Hilda Kosi Mavimbela Senthumule,
Swear that the evidence I shall give
swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
And so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are now under oath. May I hand back again to your evidence leader and the general to proceed with the presentation of evidence.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, General.
Morning, evidence.
At paragraph 1 of your statement, please provide your current position for the record.
Thank you, Advocate. My position currently is that of Acting Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection within the SAPS at the rank of Lieutenant General.
Chairperson, I wonder if I might ask if the lady could put the mic by your mouth.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable.
Could you repeat that for the record?
Thank you very much. I am currently serving in the SAPS in the capacity of Acting Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection and at the rank of Lieutenant General.
When did you start in this role?
My acting capacity resumed on the 22nd of July, 2025.
At section B of your statement, you set out the educational qualifications. If I can just ask you to run through those from paragraph 3 of your statement.
Thank you very much. I matriculated at Kenneth Masekela High School in Guatemala in 1988. And I went on to study for Bachelor of Arts for Social Sciences and Psychology and Sociology at the University of Fort Hare. And I further obtained Bachelor of Arts honors at the same institution in 1993. Currently, I'm registered for a master's degree in management with a Stadio institution.
Thank you, General. You mentioned that at paragraph 5 of your statement, you mentioned that you joined the National Intelligence Agency in 1998. Can you elaborate on the training you obtained at the National Intelligence Agency?
Okay. Having joined the NIA just after amalgamation in 1998, my operational training started with basic intelligence training. And I think that's where you do the entire spectrum of intelligence, including legislation, counterintelligence, domestic intelligence, and priorities, as well as your estimates. And then I went further to then study within counterintelligence, again, defensive arm of counterintelligence, where I was trained on vetting investigations or integrated psychoprofiling, as well as evaluations of those investigations. And that training took place at the SANDF. I see here, sorry, Chairperson, it says SADF, actually supposed to be South African National Defence Force. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, General. We then move to the section where you deal with your employment within law enforcement. We are now at paragraph 6 of your statement, where you say that following your time at the National Intelligence Agency, what was the trajectory of your career within the SAPS?
I'm not sure if Chair, the advocate wants me to go to paragraph 7 because that's where the SAPS commences, or should I go back to paragraph 6?
You may start at paragraph 7.
Paragraph 7. Thank you. My last posting within the intelligence environment was as a project manager for border intelligence within the NICOG, and I think whilst I was there, I was then approached at the time to apply for a post, and I must say that it was a lower post. It was on counterterrorism. So as a result, I applied for that post. I went for all the interviews. And in 2008, I was successfully employed as a director to head counterterrorism investigations within crime intelligence. And I must say in this role that I played an instrumental role in during the World Cup, where we actually were supposed to secure the event together with the FIFA Security Committee. So at that young age, and I think at that junior level, because all the generals, the commissioners then were sitting, and myself and General Mkhonazi were the only two directors sitting in that committee of the World Cup, chaired by General Cele. At that time, he was still the National Commissioner.
Okay. At paragraph 8, you mentioned that you then joined the DPCI.
Yeah. On the 1st of September, I then was appointed to head organized crime investigations. And I must say it was a new post at the time. So I was the first appointed head of organized crime DPCI, commonly known as the ADHOC.
At the next paragraph, it looks like you subsequently moved. You didn't stay very long at the DPCI, but then you moved laterally. Could you explain?
After engagement with General Cele at the time, who then said my skills were more required in crime intelligence, I was then laterally transferred to crime intelligence to go and head counter and security intelligence, a position I occupied again up until 2012.
Okay. And you spent a period of about 5 years. At paragraph 10, you then were again laterally transferred.
In 2016, General Patlane became the acting National Commissioner. And at the time, I was the component head for leadership management and development within HRD, General Patlane, and so it fit that I actually go and also be deployed within detective services, organized crime. And again, this was a new post emanating from the reviewed act of the DPCI, where SAPS was also given the mandate to investigate organized crime that is outside the DPCI mandate. So I then became the first head of organized crime for the SAPS.
Okay. You then became the Divisional Commissioner, Detectives and Forensic Services. Could you explain the significance of this role and how it prepared you for your subsequent appointment?
Being appointed the DevCom for Detective and Forensic Services meant that you are responsible for the entire criminal investigation business value chain, starting from your local criminal record center, your crime scene management, going into the analysis of your exhibits and into the investigation environment.
Okay. Lieutenant General, we are now at paragraph 11 of your statement. At paragraph 11, you say that on the 1st of August 2025, you were appointed to act as the National Deputy Commissioner, as you've already testified. What does this role entail, and how does it leverage on your previous experience?
This role, it's broader in that it now covers a third element of another crime detection environment, which is crime intelligence. So this is about synergizing the three environments that are critical or the backbone of the criminal justice system. So in this regard, my role makes sure I actually lead, oversee, and manage all the environments that are under those three divisions. That is Division Crime Intelligence, Division Detective Service with the new structure, as well as Division Forensic Services.
At paragraph 12 of your statement, you basically, everything that you have testified about details the past 27 years in law enforcement, which is in essence the experience that you've had over a period of time. Could you briefly just deal with what you were expected to do when you joined forensic services? We are at paragraph 12, starting from what you detail at 12.1.
Okay. As a country, over the years, we have seen crime escalate, which means that the volumes were increasing. However, our forensic science laboratory footprint was stagnant together with capacity. So one of the things that we were tasked with was to expand the forensic science laboratory footprint. And in this regard, I then was responsible for leading a team that expanded the Gqeberha Forensic Science Laboratory, which was actually a laboratory, but it didn't have all the services. So for it to be a full lab, we had to add the DNA laboratory. And this initiative was launched by the President in August of 2023.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. Lieutenant, if I may ask, you mentioned specifically this project relating to Gqeberha. How many laboratories do we have in South Africa that you particularly look after?
In the country, we have 4 full laboratories. We have got one in the Western Cape, one in Gauteng, the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, which was over a period of time not working owing to the floods that took place in KwaZulu-Natal. However, now we have managed through the help of Portfolio Committee and the Minister of Public Works and the Minister of Police, we now have a lab, a temporary lab at Mayville that makes it 4 laboratories in the country.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. At 12.2 of your statement, you also mentioned that you championed initiatives that increased resources for the division. Can you provide examples of these initiatives and their outcomes?
There's been an outcry on the capacity within the detective services, particularly the investigators. So one of the key things that we actually assist with, it's still in progress, it's to add the numbers of the investigators. However, we went broader and also added the numbers within your local criminal record centers, particularly the people who actually have to respond to crime scenes, for us to be able to support the initiatives of the investigators in putting those who are responsible for crime behind bars. In this regard, we added numbers. I think, if I may just recall, we were given 4,600 positions, and I think they were phased in. To date, we've been able to take at least 2.8. I think with the last intake, we still have to recruit more detectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. At paragraph 12.3 of your statement, you mentioned that you were the co-chair of the SAPS Business Participative Partnership. What were the main mandates and achievements of this partnership?
I still am the co-chair of this initiative, And I must add that this is a game changer in terms of the law enforcement and business in the country. We as the police, I think we have seen the fiscus of government shrinking, and as a result, we are also directly impacted, particularly operations. So in leveraging on the ecosystem of business, we are able to partner with business. And in this regard, we've identified 6 programs. If maybe you can allow me to just go through them quickly. And this is in relation to a police improvement plan for the police. We have got 5 priorities. If I may just take the committee through those priorities. It's police station modernization. It means automation of police stations and also including the virtual police stations where we can offload non-core services online than to have them being done at the police station. The second one is also leveraging on technology. This will also include the detectives where we have got your e-docket, not in terms of what we have now, e-scanning, but basically it would mean that your docket will no longer be a physical structure, but rather it will be automated. And I think any other copy, we now have iCloud where we can manage our knowledge and also minimize the issue of corruption and the losing of dockets. The other one is airborne support. There are areas which are not policeable with the police vehicle, and even in other areas which are rural, though you will have your mounted units. Looking at those areas, we leverage with business in terms of their air support. And then we can be able to penetrate, particularly the gang areas here in the Western Cape as well, where police cannot be able to enter using vehicles. Then it's the forensic service. I spoke about the expansion of the laboratories. And then again, it's the issue of looking at the increasing detective capacity. So those are the 5 areas that we are working on. Thank you.
Thank you, General. At paragraphs 13 to 13.5, you say that beyond your primary roles, you've also held several additional positions, such as project manager for the International Association of Women Police Conference and the regional coordinator for SAPCO. How did these roles contribute to your overall expertise within law enforcement?
Both positions are actually within the region, and the other one it's operating in the global space. The IAWP, which is the International Association for Women Police, is responsible for coordinating as well as bringing all women in law enforcement together where we can share skills, we can talk about our experiences. We also have got training programs aimed at identifying your high flyers or those which can be earmarked for future leadership. So this conference was the first of its kind in Africa, and to date we were the most attended. So in that role, I think my project management skills were really enhanced. This was a big conference, and I think the way we pulled it off, we even got commendation from the then National Commissioner General Biekha. In terms of the region, again, it's about getting women. If we can look at the history of policing, women, I think, came into being in the police in the 70s. So there's still that discrepancy in terms of women growing and women, being seen as operationally capable. So in these structures, we then championed, for example, in the region, the issue of promoting opportunities for women in operations, but also ensuring that those women are given support and training.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General. You've set out your background very eloquently of all the years that you've spent within the SAPS. I now would like to just take us to the next point, which is your role and responsibilities as the Divisional Commissioner of Detective and Forensic Services. It starts at paragraph 14 and it goes all the way to paragraph 18.4. Perhaps you can just summarize your role and responsibilities, but specifically, for you to set out your primary responsibilities concerning strategic management, operational coordination, and the overall development of detective and forensic services. It starts at paragraph 14.
Before I get into 14, I think I want to mention that the division as configured has got 8 components, and these include your general detectives. These include commercial crime investigations, organized crime investigations, serious violent crime investigations, family violence, child protection and sexual offences, criminal record center and crime scene management, forensic science laboratory, and quality management. Previously, these were 2 divisions which were merged into one. So my responsibility is at ensuring that we have effective investigation of crime. I'm also responsible for coordination, particularly across the board with other law enforcement agencies, but also internally, as well as in the global space. I won't talk about the resources because that is an obvious one, but more than anything, it's about setting performance standards as well as performance reviews.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. This is quite important for the testimony that you are giving today, because the questions are relating to your time, specifically when you were the divisional commissioner. So I'll spend a little bit of time here. Can you explain the specific critical competencies that you lead within SAPS, focusing on the strategic management, effective investigation, and specialized investigative capacities? You are now at paragraph 15.1 to 15.3.
Okay. In this regard, and I think, as I said, it's about developing intervention mechanisms and recovery plans for performance, ensuring that there's implementation of all our instructions that regulate how we do investigations, as well as the SOP, particularly in the forensic environment. Again, when we investigate, the end result, it's the successful prosecution of perpetrators. So in this regard, we then guide investigations on the ground. We have meetings with teams where, for example, let's say it would be a case, and I think I can cite the recent ones, the case around maybe witnesses that we have, or maybe they have been eliminated for one reason or another. So we coordinate those investigations, and at times we do involve other law enforcement agencies. Coordination is quite critical because for complex investigations, you do need other law enforcement agencies like your FIC and your SARS. So we then coordinate those competencies and bring them together with the investigators.
Thank you, General. At paragraph 16, you set out the ultimate objective. So what would you say the ultimate objective you aim to achieve in your current role? Well, that is the role before you started acting, particularly concerning community safety and crime prosecution.
And I think this goes to the police in general, that ours is to contribute effectively and in a more professional manner towards increased feeling of safety in our communities. Again, I think we have had a lot of debates and discussions around organized crime. We have an obligation to really tackle and deal with organized crime successfully, and that we can do in a collaborative and coordinated approach. So we do need working with our sister agencies to ensure that all that we do is properly investigated, and that using our forensic evidence is gathered, that the justice cluster can be able to say safely that we have put the perpetrators of crime behind bars successfully and convicted them.
Thank you, General. From paragraph 19 of your statement, which would be at capital letter E, section E, you set out the background of the issues that are before this committee. Could you kindly elaborate on the purpose of your testimony this morning?
I will take it back to the 7th of November last year. After the testimony of Advocate Johnson, I felt the need to come and address the committee on specific areas which I felt were not covered. And also, I think the chairperson then subsequently invited me to come and then sit. So in this particular setting, I will address the issue of the disbandment of the PKTT. Additionally, I will look at issues as raised by Advocate Johnson. And then lastly, I will look at the issues before the Madlanga Commission, particularly the allegations made by General Sibiya against me as a person.
Lieutenant General, you mentioned that one of the reasons why you are here is to testify on the disbandment of the PKTT. What is your involvement within the PKTT?
Okay. Yes.
So we are at section F of your statement.
Okay. If I can take the committee through the historical considerations to get to where we are today. In December 2024, as per norm in the police, we are all deployed as senior officers to assist the provinces in monitoring and overseeing police operations during the festive season. And I was deployed in the Western Cape with General Pategile. I returned home in Gauteng on the 3rd of January. And from Monday, the 6th, I started my leave. I returned from leave on the 17th of July.
So, Lieutenant General, when did you learn about the disbandment of the PKTT?
Yeah. General Khumalo and myself, General Khumalo is the DevCom for crime intelligence. We work within the same program, so many a times we will be in the same meetings. I will not recall the date, and I think I did say before that some of the chronology I have lost in the process. I met him in one of the meetings. So normally during tea, we normally sit together, and then he informed me that I'm not sure if I can say it in Zulu, when he said ubosi wakho uthi mangunika ama-dockets we PKTT, meaning that your boss said I should hand over the PKTT dockets to you. And I asked him again in Zulu, ngathi ngobani, meaning why? And he said, no, he didn't know. He was just given an instruction. So I said to him that unfortunately, an instruction in the police is everything. So you were given an instruction and I wasn't. So we laughed about it and I said, I cannot take it further.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. You mentioned that you had come back from the Western Cape on the 3rd of January, and then you subsequently took leave from the 6th of January. When did you return to the office? And what did you then have the conversation with Lieutenant General Khumalo?
It would have been on that week of the 17th when I returned from leave.
So we are now at paragraph 23 of your statement. What was your understanding of the situation at that point after you had that exchange with Lieutenant General Khumalo?
Sorry.
Honorable Madam.
Thanks, Chair. General, the question of when did you learn about the disbandment of PKTT was not sufficiently answered, because you can't say you learned about it when you're having a conversation with the General Khumalo when you return from leave. Because as a general, as it were, even if you're on leave, the matter became a big issue. And anyone, even on leave, should have paid attention as to what is really happening. And from there, you can say, I will deal with it when I return back to work. But otherwise, this was topical from when the announcement was made. So when did you learn about it and how?
Honorable Malema, I understand your direction of your question. And I did say this even on other platforms. When I was on leave, I went away with my kids and I don't think I was in touch with my colleagues. I'll give an example where there was a break-in. Actually, one of the members of the lab was was kidnapped or allegedly kidnapped. And I only got to know when General Sibia called me to say, do you know about this matter? And I then referred him to the acting. So because we really don't get time to be with our families. When I was on leave at that time, I remember I was not in touch with actually most of the things in the office. So the actual time I learned about, not the disbandment, but the movement of the dockets from crime intelligence to detective was when General Khumalo engaged me.
And the disbandment, that one I hear of the dockets, the disbandment.
The disbandment then came when I received a letter from General Sibia on the 4th of July, which then specified that the minister had given a directive that the disbandment should take place. Even General Sibia, when we discussed the matter, he said to me, have you spoken to Khumalo about the movement of dockets of the PKTT from crime intelligence into the detectives? And I did say to him, yes, Khumalo informed me. And as I said to Khumalo that there was no instruction to me, and therefore I couldn't deal with it. So it was at that peripheral level, but there was no intent or actually a conscious intent to sit me down and say, this is the minister's instruction, bring Khumalo, let's have a meeting, and how do we do it? So in my position at the time, I think it was learning on it as and when I had meetings or maybe met with General Khumalo and General Sibia.
But General, the story becomes big on the 31st of December. You only got to hear about it from Sevilla on the 4th of July. It can't be correct. A person at your level, even if you're on leave, we all go on leave, we get tired of the EFF, we switch off and we don't want. But anything significant, there's no way it won't reach me as a senior person in the EFF. The formalities I accept, but how do you get to know about it for the first time, even if it's not formal? It can't be the 4th of July, because by the 4th of July, it was an old issue, actually.
Again, I will say I do hear you, Honorable Malem. Let me give an example. There were many meetings that took place between the instruction being issued up until General Khumalo spoke to me, and also up until General Sibia spoke to me. I was not in the know of all those meetings, even the letter to General Rabi and the instruction to him, those things I never got to know. So if I respond in the affirmative, I think I'll be lying to the committee. And I think I want to leave it at that with respect. Thank you, Honorable Malem.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, General, your testimony is that at the time that General Khumalo informally had a conversation with you regarding the movement of the dockets, what was your understanding of that? What was the purpose of the movement of the dockets, if not for the directive of the 31st?
When General Khumalo explained it to me, he said that the DNC said that the dockets must move from crime intelligence, which actually is conducting investigation, not necessarily court directed, and they are doing so in support of the detectives. So the dockets must then go to a structure that was dealing with the detectives, with the investigations, which is the detectives. That was my understanding.
Okay. So your testimony is that you were not aware of the letter of the 31st of December.
At that time, no, I was.
This is in January on.
Yes.
Roughly after the 17th of January.
No, I was not aware.
But you only became aware on the 4th of July.
On that letter which General Sibia sent, where he specified that the minister directed that this should happen.
Okay. Just the last follow-up question on that. Are you testifying that that was the time when you saw the letter, or is your testimony that this is the first time that you learned about the disbandment? Because the question was quite specific. When did you learn about the disbandment?
I never actually saw at that time the 31st December letter. I only saw it being made reference of in the letter that General Sibia wrote to me. So in essence, I then learned of the disbandment in that particular letter of the 4th of July.
Thank you, General. We are now.
Sorry, 4th of February, I apologize. No, I was apologizing that it was the 4th of February when the letter was written to me. So I actually said 4th of July. So I was making an apology for that mistake. Thank you.
Just for the sake of
No,
completion.
Chair. That's why it didn't make sense. That's why it didn't make sense at all that there could be such an announcement on the 31st and you learn about it in July.
No.
But when you say February,
I actually apologize. I think I made an error. Apologies for that.
Although we have not reached that section, just for the sake of completion, at Annexure 4, which is on page Annexure.
I'm already there.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Annexure 4 at page 77. It is dated 2025-0204. So that's the 4th of February 2025. Is this the date when you learned about the PKTT?
Disbandment, yes.
Yes, the disbandment of the PKTT. Okay. May I proceed? At paragraph 25 of your statement, actually, if I can just take it one step back, at paragraph 23, what was your understanding? You testified that you had an informal discussion with General Lieutenant Khumalo regarding the PKTT. What was your understanding of the situation at that point?
The mention of the task team or the PKTT took me back to 2018. And when the IMC met in 2018, we were invited as the senior generals in the police. At that time, I was the head of organized crime. General Mosikiri was the divisional commissioner for detectives. General Tsumane was the DNC for detectives. So the entire program, in terms of the responsibilities around issues of investigations or maybe what I would call contract killings, we were invited. General Ramatswele at the time was the component head for general detectives. He was also invited. So the 4 of us were in that meeting where this PKTT was configured.
At paragraph 26, after your discussion with Lieutenant General Khumalo, what transpired when Lieutenant General Sibia inquired about the transfer of dockets?
As I said earlier, that my response to him was Khumalo told me the same thing, and I informed him that there was nothing in writing for me that actually I could use as a point of reference to engage Khumalo in relation to the movement of the PKTT dockets.
At paragraph 27, you say that on the 4th of February 2025, you received a letter from Lieutenant General Khumalo. You received the letter from the DNC, Sibia, in your capacity as the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services. That letter is attached as HKS 4, and it is at page 76 of the bundle. if you could turn to page 76 of the bundle. What were your instructions? What were the instructions that were contained in that letter? And what was its stated basis regarding the minister's directive?
I must say that my copy is quite bad. I can't read properly, but I'll try. And it said that in compliance with the aforementioned directive of the minister, you are directed to engage with the Divisional Commissioner for Crime Intelligence with the view to do a proper handover and to follow all the processes necessary to conduct a handing over process. This includes, but is not limited to, a report of all cases, a case register where all the cases were recorded, and the current status of court-going cases and cases under investigation. Paragraph 5.3, all cases or projects documentation relevant to the political clearance task team. This should include evidentiary materials, and that is documents, electronic recordings, etc. It must be booked into the SAP 13 or in possession of the team or stored in any storage facility. All human and physical resources allocated, they must be listed, as well as a report on all financial expenditure for the duration of the operations of the PKTT.
Lieutenant General, this letter that was from Lieutenant General Sibia, dated the 4th of February 2025. What was the purpose of the letter?
The purpose was to kickstart a process where I would engage General Khumalo, and then we will start the handing over process of the work of the PKTT from General Khumalo as the project manager, and that will move into the detective environment.
Okay. At paragraph 3 of the letter, it sets out that it sets out the directive in terms of the minister's directive regarding the disbandment of the PKTT, and it's dated. The date there is the 31st of December 2024. Is this the reason why you say that it was the first time that you learned that there was a minister's directive?
Yes. In actual fact, even the 31st December correspondence as quoted here, that was the first time that I actually learned about it.
Okay. Yes. What was the specific instruction to you within the division that you were heading at the time?
As stipulated, it is to just get a report on all cases, and together with, I mean, if you read it, it said even items which were kept at SAP 13 or any other place was supposed to be handed over to the detectives for them to begin their storing process.
Okay. On the following page, the instruction continues. If you can read that into the record.
On paragraph 6, it says it is advised that the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services ensures that the cases and investigations are taken care of to ensure that cases are not lost in court because of the deactivation and the disbandment of the task team. Further, on paragraph 7, you are required to ensure that this is done within 7 days, in also considering the content of the attached correspondence sent to the DevCom Crime Intelligence, which you will also ensure the closing report is submitted as per the directive of the National Commission.
In terms of that letter, all the actions that you read out earlier that are set out at paragraph 5, they were to be actioned within 7 days. Is my understanding correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If you can then go back to paragraph 29 of your statement. Okay, paragraph 29, paragraph 30 paragraph 29 sets out what you have read into the record based on HKS 4. Now, at paragraph 30, you mentioned the 6th of February. Could you explain to the committee what that relates to?
Yeah, post receiving the letter, and I must say there's no interrelation between the letter and the meeting of the minister. It's just a chronology of events. On the 6th of February, the Minister of Police, Minister Mkhunu, called a sub-stock management meeting. And this meeting also involved or included the deputy ministers, the national commissioner, the DNCs, divisional commissioners, and provincial commissioners. The General Pategili was in attendance because he's here in the Western Cape. And the meeting was about briefing the minister on the key competencies of SAPS. And I remember in that meeting, I was supposed to present on the structure of the detectives and our initiative towards capacitating the detectives.
What were the outcomes of that meeting?
Unfortunately, I think on the day we arrived, as we were driving to the venue, which is the provincial office in the Western Cape, I got a call from my cousin that my nephew, Otato, was killed after he was stabbed. And that actually resulted in me having to return home. So in essence, I didn't conclude the sitting of that meeting. I had to go back home.
How did this event, this tragic loss of your nephew, impact on your ability to engage immediately with the PKTT handover process? Because what we've read from the letter is that the minister's directive was that it ought to be disbanded immediately. That's number one. Number two, as per the author of the letter, Lieutenant General Sibiya, he had directed that it must be actioned within 7 days. So how did this event impact on your deliverables?
General Khumalo and myself were not able to meet because I think I was home fully in Guatemala for the better part of the funeral arrangements. And also General Khumalo had other engagements because, as you can know, that our portfolios require us to take part in a number of structures. So the only time then we were able to meet was towards the end of February.
What steps did you discuss for the handover process when you met? And what was the PKTT disbandment? What steps did you take for the handover process?
When you are given an instruction, I don't think you go haphazardly and implement. So we had to find a strategy or a way of how is this going to be done. And I think the starting point would be to have an implementation plan and also categorize all the, or maybe let me say, categorize all the issues that will have to be undertaken and also assign responsibilities as well as the period on which it will take you to conclude the handover. So in this regard, we then developed an implementation plan.
At paragraph 33, you mentioned that you developed the PKTT disbandment implementation plan. What was is the plan set out somewhere? Where can we find this plan and what was its objectives?
The plan is set out, I think, as an annexure 5. That will be page 78. The objective, as I said, it was to come up with a strategy on how we are going to go about with the disbandment process. And this plan, as you can see, it's dated 6 March because it was also part of what was given to the minister as a presentation on the 6th of March. In this particular presentation, as per the letter of General Sibiya, where he said we must take stock of all the cases, their status. So here we have a list of all the cases that were with the PKTT, and this will include your politically related cases, your parallel cases, and other ad hoc that they would pick up as they were investigating the cases, and these were linked to the PKTT. And also it included the workload of the PKTT that included traditional leadership cases, University of Fort Hare cases. It had all the numbers and the cases status in terms of where they are in relation to investigation. So in total, at the time of our assessment, General Khumalo, the PKTT had 612 cases, 612 cases. And I think as you go down on page 82, and it stipulates now the phased out approach of how the disbandment will take place. In total, 125 dockets were under investigation, and of those, 60 were political related, 46 were traditional leadership related, 16 were parallel cases, 2 were University of Fort Hare, and 1 ADHOC. So all these cases were under investigation, and 10 dockets were already submitted for decision at the DPP's office. So all of these 125 cases plus 10 were to be transferred to KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape serious and violent crimes, particularly murder and robbery unit for investigation. I need to clarify here that General Sibia said the dockets must come to head office, but the plan as proposed for the minister was saying that the dockets must go back to the province to a specialized unit. I think we'll get into that when we proceed with the...
Yes, we will. Thank you, Lieutenant General. Lieutenant General, as you are aware of the timeline, I'd asked you a bit earlier as well, that we are now on the 6th of March, and you were presenting...
Honorable James.
Thank you, Chair. Just clarity, the dockets, in the plan, it says that the dockets must go to KZN, Crime Intelligence. Am I correct? Is that from General Sibia's office, or is that from PKT's office in KZN?
Okay. This was, as per my discussion with General Kumar, we were tasked with the handover process. So when we were discussing, we both felt that the rightful place to investigate the cases will be within KwaZulu-Natal, serious and violent crimes, not necessarily at head office. And I need to clarify, I think I've said this over and over, that at national, we do not necessarily have capacity to investigate. Ours is to ensure that we intervene, we monitor. So we would not have been able to have a task team. I think my argument was from that particular perspective, that you cannot disband a team and form a team. It would have meant for us to have a team. So the logical step to follow was to then say, already there is an established serious and violent crimes environment in KwaZulu-Natal who are capable to take the investigations forward.
Okay, so basically, in essence, you are saying that those dockets had no business finding its way to General Sibia's office.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Lieutenant General, perhaps it's also a good time, even though we are still at paragraph 32, perhaps this would be a good time to explain to the committee at the point at which you were developing this implementation plan, where were the dockets?
The dockets were in KwaZulu-Natal with the PKTT. And I suppose General Khumalo, though he actually had moved, maybe I should clarify this, Chairperson. General Khumalo was the project manager for the PKTT in KwaZulu-Natal, based in KwaZulu-Natal. In 2022, he got promoted to become the DevCom for Crime Intelligence. General Masemula and General Tele agreed that for continuity, General Khumalo should continue with being the PM for the PKTT. So though he was here physically, the team was still based in KwaZulu-Natal and the dockets were in KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. We are still at paragraph 32 of your statement. You mentioned that General Khumalo, when you saw him and you had that informal conversation, which you repeat at paragraph 32, with him, he had a report. On him, he had a report. What was contained in that report?
Maybe also to go back to Honorable Malema's question. I think this is Honorable Malema, when I said I was totally in the dark. Even this particular engagement between General Masemula, General Khumalo, and General Rabi. General Khumalo only made reference to it to say that on the 22nd of January, they already had started with a report to the minister on the disbandment. And in that particular report, they stipulated the winding down approach because it was not possible to either disband immediately or actually within a week of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, General. At paragraph 34, you mentioned that you appeared before the portfolio committee. Can you describe what was specified regarding the transition of cases, and firstly, what was the purpose of that appearance? And then secondly, you can then describe what was specified in that meeting.
If my memory serves me well, the rationale behind our appearance at the portfolio committee was to deal with the challenges within crime intelligence. So General Khumalo, had prepared a presentation on all issues that actually the portfolio committee had asked the subs to prepare a presentation on. But on that particular presentation, there was a slide that specified the disbandment of the PKTT. And I think in this particular slide, General Khumalo mentioned to the portfolio committee that the disestablishment or the disbandment will take form of a transition from the NPKTT to component serious and violent crimes within detective and forensic services.
Okay. For the sake of completion, the annexure, the slide that you referred to is annexed as HKS 6 at page 87. Is that the slide you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. At paragraph 36 of your statement, you mentioned that a meeting was convened by the minister on the 6th of March 2025. What was the purpose of the meeting?
The specific meeting was to address progress made after the minister's directive of the 31st of March 2024. And this will talk to the disbandment or the disestablishment of the PKTT. So the invitation was sent to the National Commissioner, who then extended through his office the invitation to all affected officials, myself, General Khumalo, General Musiki, General Sibia, and the National Commission.
Where was the meeting held?
The meeting was held in the Western Cape Provincial Commissioner's office at provincial headquarters of the Western Cape.
What were the deliverables outlined in the plan that you presented at this meeting?
Yeah. I think I did cover it earlier, but I will just break it down again. As I said, 125 dockets under investigation and 10 of those which were submitted to the DPP for decision were to be transferred to KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape serious and violent crimes. Remember, there were 40 dockets there. So the 122 would go to KwaZulu-Natal, and the 3 dockets of Fort Hare would go back to the murder and robbery unit of Eastern Cape. Then secondly, new cases which were to be reported on political killings will immediately be referred to murder and robbery units in KwaZulu-Natal. And the 297 dockets, which were finalized, including 57 withdrawn and 9 unfounded, all of those were to be returned to their station of origin for archiving or filing. And lastly, which is very critical, 114 dockets which were on the court roll were to remain with the PKTT until they were all finalized.
At paragraph 39, you say that during these deliberations, Lieutenant General Sibia, the DNC, was not pleased with the approach of keeping the court-going dockets with the PKTT. What were the differing sentiments during the deliberations, particularly those that were with Lieutenant General Sibia?
Once the proposal was tabled before the minister and the deputy ministers and national commissioner, General Sibia, I think he raised his concerns that if, for example, the 114 dockets were to remain with the PKTT, it would mean that the team was not disbanded. It would mean that the team actually was continuing. So he felt strongly that actually all the dockets, including the court-going dockets, were to be transferred to the murder and robbery units or to the detectives.
Was he the only official at the meeting who had these different sentiments?
From the minister's office, his chief of staff was there, and I think he also was in support of GNC's proposal that all the dockets, including the court-going dockets, should go to the PKTT. And I think the minister also was sharing the same view that no dockets should remain with the PKTT.
So in essence, your answer is that the minister, Lieutenant General Sibia, and the minister's chief of staff were dissatisfied with the manner in which you were approaching the implementation plan for the disbandment of the PKTT.
I wouldn't necessarily say dissatisfied. I would say maybe they disagreed, because remember we are presenting. So they disagreed with the approach of keeping the 114 court-going dockets with the PKTT.
At paragraph 41, you mentioned that there was at the parliamentary briefing that you testified about earlier of the 5th of March 2025, which was the police portfolio committee. How did the parliamentary briefing and the March 6 meeting with the minister, his chief of staff, Lieutenant General Sibia, influence your understanding and legitimize the DNC's instruction for the handover?
Maybe with your permission, Chairperson, if I can go back to paragraph 40, because it's quite critical moving forward. As I said, that the meeting deliberated, and then there were differing views, as you said, disagreements, but eventually the implementation plan was provisionally approved. And the only amendment on that plan was that, which means the meeting agreed that the 114 dockets will remain with the PKTT. However, as and when each case gets concluded, the dedicated detective holding the docket and the combat member assigned for his protection will then withdraw from the team and return to their station of origin, or actually their business unit. Now, coming back to what you asked. And again, I think I'll go back to the question of Honorable Malem, because for me, the instruction was said to me out of a context. So as you are implementing, you actually wonder, but why are we not having a meeting where this matter is discussed? Why is it only me, General Khumalo, and General Sibia? So when the parliamentary briefing took place, I then realized that actually this is an authentic instruction. And also when the meeting of the 6th took place, it brought perspective to me to say that the DNC's instruction, as articulated in his letter of the 4th of July, were actually legitimized. I felt that, okay, so I can go ahead with the process. The principals were in the know, Parliament was in the know.
At paragraph 42, you mentioned that during the month of March 2025, there were numerous inquiries and reminders from the DNC about the handover process. What was the nature of the inquiries and the reminders that you received from the DNC?
We were supposed to report to the minister at the end of March 2025. And I think the DNC would continuously ask, how far are you? Have you received the dockets? And I think he did say also, and I'm sorry to bring this to this committee, during his Madlanga commission that he did put pressure, particularly on me to get the dockets from General Khumalo. So they were numerous. I mean, when I say numerous, I mean probably it could have been once a day or once in 2 days, just to say, get the process going.
You testified that according to the letter at HKS 4, that the DNC addressed to you and General Khumalo, he had said that action must be taken within 7 days. You further testified that it's not as simple to put together a plan, an implementation plan. But at this point, at the end of we are at the end of March, and 2 months have essentially, just under 2 months have essentially elapsed. After his instruction for this to be actioned. So you further then go on in your paragraph 42, and you say that the DNC insinuated that I was now like Lieutenant General Khumalo and was dragging my feet in implementing the minister's instruction. What are your comments to that?
And that should be paragraph
42.
Paragraph 42. Sorry, as I said that there were actually maybe say disagreements in view of how this disbandment should take place. So in my view, there was a view that says disband everything, including the court-going dockets. And then there was a view, particularly from the team, that said, actually, let's also keep the court going as the minister's approval that when the cases get concluded, then the team can withdraw back to their station. So the DNC was adamant that actually General Khumalo is not pulling his weight, and I must say at that time, they were not on talking terms. So I was the buffer between the two of them. So the DNC would then come to me and say, yeah, now you want to be seen like General Khumalo and you're dragging the feet in implementing the minister's instruction. So he was saying to me that the minister also will see me as a person who was not willing or actually cooperative in fulfilling his instruction.
Given that the instruction had come initially from the minister, from his directive of 31 December 2024, and subsequently from your the head of your division, who looked after your division, who would have been Lieutenant General Sibia, where was the differing view coming from? Because the minister, his chief of staff, and the DNC seem to be speaking in one voice. Even as he is pressurizing you, it is to action the minister's directive. So when you mention a differing view, where did that differing voice come from?
For me, the point of contention, advocate, was around the issue of the court-going dockets. I think everybody was fine with the dockets under investigation and those which were with the DPP for decision, but also those which were finalized, withdrawn, that were supposed to go back to the station. General Sibia, the minister, and the chief of staff felt that if the PKTT keeps the 114 dockets, it meant that the team is not disbanded. One area of the plan that General Khumalo presented was the reduced number of the current staff or members that were deployed in the PKTT. So I think there were about 96 members. The revised staff establishment would have come to 68, which means they were reducing. Other members would have to go back to their station of origin or business unit, and the 68 would continue. So this 68 would focus on the 114 dockets which were court going. And according to the minister, General Sibia, and the chief of staff, that meant that the team was not disbanded. So that basically was the point of contention.
Okay. Would it then be fair to say that the point of contention came from, it would have been you and Lieutenant General Khumalo, because you were tasked specifically to handle this, the the disbandment and the in handling the dockets, the transfer of dockets?
Because we were the compilers of the plan. So we agreed with the 114 dockets staying with the team. General Musigidi, General Masemula, who were also in the meeting, were in support of actually retaining the 114 dockets. And the rationale is that when the docket is at court, already there's a rapport between the victims, there's a rapport with the prosecution and other role players who's involved. So to actually give those dockets to a new team, you are actually disturbing. And I think the best way is to talk about the chain of custody, but also the progress as well as the prospect of success in the investigation. That was the rationale why the dockets had to be kept with the team to conclude to court.
Okay. At paragraph 44 of your statement, you mentioned that a follow-up meeting was convened with the minister. You would have initially met on the 6th of March, and this is a follow-up meeting about 3 weeks later. What transpired at this meeting regarding the progress of the disbandment implementation plan?
In my view, the meeting was prematurely adjourned. As General Khumalo started presenting, if I may go back to the 6th of March meeting, he presented 125 dockets under investigation. But on the 27th, he presented 121 dockets under investigation. I think this is where the 121 dockets came into the fore. And General Khumalo, during his presentation, explained that 4 dockets under investigation were successfully enrolled, and that led to the reduction of the dockets from 125 to 121. And the minister also was worried that concerned that no handover process took place. By the 27th, we should have already handed over the dockets from General Khumalo's outfit, which is the PKTT, into the detectives, which is me, and I must say, en route to KwaZulu-Natal, because they were supposed to stay in head office. So that process, at that time, that process had not taken place. So the minister was really displeased with the both of us.
Sorry about that. Good morning, General.
Morning.
Just explain this. So the dockets were going to physically move from KZN to you and then back to KZN. Is that what you mean?
At that time, the modalities of how were not discussed. It was just the roadmap to say, this is what needs to happen. Yeah, so meaning that eventually, whether it's from KwaZulu-Natal to KwaZulu-Natal, Natal to Gauteng, but the dockets by then should have moved from PKTT to the detectives. Thank you, Honorable.
Lieutenant General, you had just provided evidence regarding the meeting of the 27th of March, and you know, also dealing with what transpired at the meeting. At this point, 3 weeks, I think I'd mentioned this already, that 3 weeks had lapsed since the meeting of the 6th of March. What steps had you and Lieutenant General Khumalo taken to ensure that you, in fact, meet the minister's directive, that you deal with it and action it?
If I may have to mention that much as the directive was given, I think all of us had to realize that both General Khumalo and myself are running divisions. So we were not only seized with the matter of the PKTT, there were other obligations. I remember on the 26th of March, General Khumalo informing me that he was busy with the auditors. And I think before that, he had meetings with MECOC and other role players. So from my side as well, I mean, running both divisions, we had to find time, and we need, all of us had to be realistic that this is not the only matter on the table for us. There were other critical and strategic matters that we were dealing with.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. Did your office or Lieutenant General Khumalo's office engage the DNC's office regarding the delay?
No, at no point.
At paragraphs 45 and 46, you deal with the minister's dissatisfaction at this meeting. What was your response to the statement by the minister?
And if my memory doesn't fail me, the minister said these two divisional commissioners are not serious about my instruction. And therefore, National Commissioner, moving forward, I won't deal with them, I'll deal with you. And I remember I innocently raised my hand and I said, Minister, I understood the instruction and I am not undermining your authority in this one.
How would you describe your relation? Had you interacted with the minister prior to this meeting?
I did.
How would you describe the nature of your relationship?
To be specific, I mean, I've worked with previous ministers, and in my view, he was the first minister that I could at least identify with his vision, particularly in relation to the detectives. And the National Commissioner was in the know. So there were projects that he was running, and lo and behold, I was responsible for them. So we had a very good relationship.
And how would you describe the minister's relationship with the DNC?
Can I be asked not to respond to that because it will be speculation? Thank you.
Okay. Back at paragraph 45 and 46, we are still there. What did the DNC instruct you to do afterwards, after the minister had expressed his dissatisfaction?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Good morning, Lieutenant General. Just a question of clarity. Do we have a copy of the minutes for that meeting, or where can we get them?
I know there was secretariat on that day from both the NASCOM and the minister. I've never seen the minutes of those meetings, and I don't remember them being requested. I suppose we can ask both officers if they do have a record of that meeting.
Okay, so we'd need to ask both the Minister's office and then the National Commissioner's
Yes.
office as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable.
Let's proceed.
Okay. Lieutenant General, I had asked a question. What did the DNC instruct you to do after the minister had expressed his dissatisfaction?
I guess he actually gained leverage because he reminded me that you see where this has led us. You're not willing to follow the instruction, and then he asked me to then hastily and expediently finalize the handover. I must say that from that meeting, both myself and General Khumalo, I was as upset because in the meeting, it would have seemed as if we didn't do what we were supposed to do, or maybe that we were not willing. And at that time, I asked the National Commissioner and I said to him, but General, do really I have to get involved? Why don't these dockets go somewhere else? And General Masamula said to me, it is because you are the head of detectives. That's why you need to get involved. But again, I must say that you could tell from that meeting that I think General Khumalo also was adversely affected, and I think the meeting did not end on a good note.
General, I keep going back to the same point because I'm actually trying to ascertain whether the minister and the DNC were acting in a manner that was to put pressure on you. What we know is that the letter had first been written for your attention on the 4th of February. What we also know from what you've testified is that on the 5th of March, there was a portfolio committee meeting where some of these issues were ventilated. And then the following day, on the 6th of March, the minister addressed you and Lieutenant General Khumalo regarding the plan and that it ought to be actioned by the 17th of March. And at the following meeting on the 27th of March, there were still no steps taken. And you've also testified that you did not, your office nor Lieutenant General Khumalo's office, neither of the officers had addressed a letter communicating the delay and perhaps requesting a further deadline. So would you say that on the 28th of March, when the DNC expressed, following the minister's dissatisfaction and what you've just testified, that this was now causing some type of tension between the team, was that unreasonable given the fact that there were numerous deadlines that had now not been met?
In this process, I don't think there's anything that I can deem unreasonable. Probably, I think I would say some of the things were not as feasible as we actually had hoped. So, yeah, there was no, after the 27th, we both knew we have to do it. So there was no reviewing whether the DNC should be informed. After he spoke to me, we spoke to General Khumalo. I actually spoke to General Khumalo, and I said to him, if it's possible, on the 28th, can we finalize? And if you go to the plan, in my mind, I was thinking, I really have a lot of work to do. I only have 3 actions on the plan. If I do this, then we can conclude the process.
Still at paragraph.
So maybe my focus wasn't so much on what the DNC said, but more on what the plan required of me.
Still at paragraph 47 of your statement, you further state that you wanted the process to be finalized, particularly your role in the handover process, so that you do not have to be called out for failure to comply with the instruction. It seems that you just wanted to get the job done. Did you believe that the minister's directive of 31 December should have been actioned? So what I'm asking is, were you of the view that the disbandment ought to have taken place to remove the dockets from the PC's, the Provincial Commissioner's office in KZN to head office?
I think part of your question, I'm sure we will cover when I talk about General Mkhwana's. But as I said earlier, the 2 meetings, 5 and 6 March, were critical for me to say this is actually a legitimate instruction that all of us, because in that meeting there was deputy ministers, there was national commissioner, and by the way, their principals, myself and Khumalo, are implementers. So there was nothing wrong actually at that time. When we were looking at the issue of the disbandment. For me, it came when I realized that the PC was actually not in the picture.
So at paragraphs 47 to 50 of your statement, you deal with finalization of the dockets and the handover and transfer of them. What process was involved?
General Khumalo sits in an office in Pretoria East, and we therefore had to make an arrangement to meet in his office and do the handover. General Motsepe, who is the component head for serious and violent crimes, would have been the operating officer from my division. Unfortunately, she was not feeling well, and she then delegated Brigadier Khopodi Tata, who is the section head for stock theft, to actually, and assistant detective for that matter. People will say, but he's in stock theft. He is a assistant detective who actually worked almost all the environments in the detectives. So then he was the one who was given to me by General Motsepe to accompany me with his team to complete the handover process. Sorry.
Thank you, General. You set out the various steps that were taken, starting with the auditing of the dockets at paragraph 51. What was the process of auditing the dockets, and what did you sign as proof of receipt? We are at paragraph 51.
We subsequently went to Crime Intelligence, General Kumalo's office, to be specific. It was myself, Brigadier Tata, and Kadel Mzuli joined me later. And there were boxes of the dockets, meaning that General Kumalo had brought the dockets to head office. And at that point in time, which means they actually came before the 27th, before the meeting of the minister. When we met, they were already there in Crime Intelligence. Then the team, together with General Kumalo's team, we then had to do proper due diligence. And that would have been your first level auditing. And that meant that they need to ensure, look at, for example, the complete list of the docket per box and compare it with the actual dockets. But over and above that, open the docket and see if all the documents are complete and properly filed, and also verifying the contents that there's nothing missing, and also then the handing over took place from there.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. You rushed over the part when they actually arrived, when they were transferred from KZN to the head office.
Yeah.
Could you deal with that in detail? Who brought them? Who brought them from KwaZulu-Natal?
I wouldn't be in the know. I think I heard from Colonel Kumalo's testimony at Majanga that actually he was the one who brought the dockets. But at the time, I was not aware as to how they came to General Kumalo's office. So we were the receiver, so we didn't bring them to Gauteng.
Okay. So your testimony is that your evidence is that both you and Lieutenant General Kumalo were not aware of how the dockets were transferred from KwaZulu-Natal to head office. However, they were brought to head office.
I wouldn't say both of us were in the know. My take on this is that General Kumalo, as the DevCom who had the dockets, instructed his people to go get the dockets from KwaZulu-Natal into Pretoria, because that's where I'm based. That's my only logical explanation.
When did they reach the head office?
Because they were there already on the 27th, I suppose it would have been shortly before the meeting of the 27th.
You can then continue at paragraph 51, where you set out the steps that you took once you received the dockets.
I think I've already covered those. And maybe I can go to 52, where the team physically counted the dockets and against the list that was there in each box to make sure that everything corresponded and that no docket was left behind during the handover process. And once they were done, it was only then when General Kumalo and myself, we co-signed the handover list.
Okay. If I can then ask you to turn to page 88 of the bundle. That is HKS 7.
Okay, 88.
Starting from 88 all the way to 91. Particularly at page 91. That is your signature dated the 28th of March 2025.
Yes.
Is this the list at the front of page 88? Is a document which is on the SAPS letterhead addressed to the Project Coordinator of Investigations and Political Related Cases in KwaZulu-Natal. The heading is Handing Over of Dockets Under Investigation, National Task Team Investigating Political Related Cases in KwaZulu-Natal. Is this the list that contains all the dockets following the audit that you refer to?
Yes.
So when you say you did a handover, are you referring to this letter?
Actually, to this process.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just beyond the letter. The dockets also were physically handed over to the team of the detectives.
Okay. So at paragraph 53, what instructions were given to Brigadier Hoboditata regarding the safekeeping and transfer of the dockets?
In response to this, I want to go back to the issue of the plan. The plan said the dockets were to be taken to KwaZulu-Natal murder and robbery unit. So the instruction was that in the process of waiting for us to travel down to have all the engagements, that those dockets, I mean, he's a assistant detective, so they know the protocols around the safekeeping and guarding of the dockets. And so that will be pending the final handover to the Provincial Commission of KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay. So as Honorable James had pointed out to you, that the dockets just made quite a long way to go back to KwaZulu-Natal. They left KwaZulu-Natal. What we know is that they arrived in Gauteng at the head office on the 27th of March. And the process that you have detailed, firstly of auditing the dockets, that was initiated by you and Brigadier Hoboditata. Is that correct? Hoboditata. Was for the purposes of now sending it back to KwaZulu-Natal.
And if I may.
Is that correct?
Yes, if I may. And I think this was the beginning of the problems with the PKTT dockets, them being at head office. Can I ask that we then cover it after I give my feedback on General Mkhona's response towards the handing over?
Okay, because you had now opened up a question to follow up to what these problems were.
Okay.
So we will park the question and then we will revisit it at the relevant paragraph.
Yeah.
At paragraph 53, you then stated that, 54 rather, paragraph 54, you then stated that this was the first and last time you physically saw and interacted with the PKTT dockets. Can you elaborate on why this was the case? Paragraph 54.
Yeah. It will even go to the issue of my discussion on how the dockets should be handled. As senior officers, we don't keep dockets in our offices. Dockets belongs to the investigators, and therefore, for me, it was just to facilitate, and the people who then keep those dockets for the handover would be the rightful people who are actually heading the investigations, and that's Brigadier Hoboditata and General Mutsipe.
Okay, so General, from paragraph 55 to 57 of your statement. Paragraph 55, you set out the process that was followed for the handover of the PKTT dockets. So you said out that on 1 April 2025, you received a WhatsApp message about the dockets. How did you respond to this message, and what were your reasons for delaying the immediate transfer of dockets to KZN?
Okay. I think, I'm not sure if I may have touched it to say that with Hoboditata, we and Jalo Khumalo, we agreed that on the 1st of April, actually the first week of April, we should take the dockets to KwaZulu-Natal for the handover. So Brigadier Hoboditata then sent me a WhatsApp message where he was inquiring if they should start with the paperwork for the trip, meaning that should they plan for their itineraries for approval for us to then travel. At the time, I think it was at a critical time where one of the minister's project, and that relates to what I spoke about earlier, of the automation of police stations and also improving our service model at the police stations. So I was responsible for that project of the SAPS-PAXA commitment dinner, which was basically a partnership. So where the business was going to commit to SAPS, their resources in assisting us in improving service delivery at a police station specifically. I remember Hopotata is not part of the action plan, but I am the responsible. And also I couldn't send a junior officer to the provincial commissioner. So I then asked that maybe they just halt the process, allow me to conclude this particular engagement, which was on the 7th of April. And then the following day, which is 8, 9, and 10, the minister also with the national commissioner, they had arranged a policing summit where all of us as police senior management were there. And if Honorable Matheus can also maybe indulge me, at this point in time, Honorable Matheus would remember that the Eastern Cape alleged rape of a minor happened. And I think also as the head of detectives, I was seized with that matter with the province. So that again affected my ability to be able to travel to the Eastern Cape. There was a public outcry on that matter. And I think we had numerous briefings with Parliament on what could have happened in that particular alleged rape of a minor.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. Lieutenant General, you say that this meeting was to take place, that you were involved in, was to take place on the 7th of April, and that you say so at paragraph 56. You later say that immediately after that there was a police summit. When was the police summit?
It was on the 8, 9, and 10 of April, and that took place at Emperor's Palace in Boksburg.
Okay. You also testified about an issue, a matter that needed your attention in the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
When would that have been?
Still in April, and I think it took place the better part. I think the better part of April. There were contentious reports, and I think the doctors had to be summoned. And I think for 2 weeks we had to really respond on the matter, particularly to Parliament and the public.
Were you physically in the Eastern Cape?
We were in the Eastern Cape, but also we were at National, and at some point I think we came to Parliament for a briefing.
Okay. How long were you in the Eastern Cape?
I wouldn't remember, but I can say, as I said, I think the better part of the 2 weeks from the 14th, I think, up until probably the 21st or so. Not necessarily in the Eastern Cape, but dealing with the matter of the Eastern Cape alleged rape of a minor.
Okay. You then, at paragraph 58, you then say that Lieutenant General Khumalo informed you that they were bringing more dockets from the Eastern Cape. When Lieutenant General Khumalo called you on that day, the 23rd of April, regarding the additional dockets, what steps did you take and why did you not involve Brigadier Hopotitata?
On the 23rd of April, General Khumalo, maybe let me say, if you see on the letter of the handover, 118 dockets were handed over, not 121. So there were 3 dockets outstanding. And those would be the 4 hair dockets that are also listed in one of the annexures. So on the 23rd of April, that call was to say, General Khumalo now has the 3 dockets and that he's going to hand them over. And Brigadier Hopotitata only came to the college because at the time we had an Interpol meeting with other member states, and I was chairing that meeting. So the handover took place at the Sub-Swane College.
Okay. At annexure HKS 8, which is at page 92, are those the additional documents that you refer to?
Yes.
Can you go to HKS 8?
92. I'm there.
On page 92?
Yes.
And those are, it sets out the 3 additional cases. And the date is the 23rd of April, 2025.
Yes.
Okay. The Eastern Cape dockets. Okay. You then asked Brigadier Hopotitata to engage Major General Mgobozi in KZN. What was the outcome of this engagement?
Maybe
And what was the request made to you? This is at paragraph 59 of your statement.
now that we had all the 121 dockets, and I realized that actually time is filtering away at our disposal. So I said, General Brigadier Khopotata, instead of waiting for me, engage the Deputy Provincial Commissioner for Crime Detection to arrange for a handover of the dockets, because if you are to wait for me, this will never happen. And I think at that time, that's paragraph 59 now, Brigadier Khopotata called the acting DPC, who was Brigadier Gunene, and he is the provincial head for serious violent crimes in the province. He was acting at the time for General Mpopozi, who was, I think, on sick leave. In the discussion, Brigadier Gunene informed Khopotata that, listen, I will not be able to take these dockets. If you want me to take them, please ask the DEVCOM, which is myself, to engage the Provincial Commission.
Lieutenant General, if it was always available to you to be able to request from staffers in your office to communicate with the KZN team, why did you have to wait a month, the whole of April? We are now at the back end of April, before you could take the step that didn't even physically involve you. You are now giving the instruction to a brigadier to action it and start the communication. What is your comment to that?
I will again go back, Advocate, to say the intention was for me to go because I am actually on the action plan. And realizing that, I think the pressures of work, and I must say, this is not like you just take this docket to you move. As you work in the police, I always say you don't plan. I think the National Commissioner will attest. So today you plan that, okay, we are traveling. Tomorrow you are told, pack all your bags, we are traveling to KwaZulu-Natal, there's a crisis, or we are going to the Eastern Cape. So we also, I must say that on the structure, there is a dotted line from the DPC to ourselves. So I thought, and we actually work very well with all of them. They report to us on performance. So I thought, Khopotata, maybe thinking on my feet at the time, to say, Khopotata, engage the DPC and see if we can, in the interim, engage. The intention was to engage General Mkhwanazi afterwards. And normally when we do that, I talked to General Kumalo, Mbuso in Gauteng, without the PC, and it's how we do business. And I think the PCs are in there, they understand. So it's never an issue. So I thought maybe instead of keeping them further, let the team at least at the bottom start the process without me. I will engage the PC afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at paragraph 60 and 61 of your statement, you say that on the 24th of April, 2025, you telephonically engaged Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. What was his response to your request to arrange the handover of the KTT dockets?
His immediate response was confusion, because he asked me, which dockets are you talking about? So I told him that these are the TKTT dockets in line with the disbandment letter. And I think one of the actions was that the dockets should be handed over to SVC, murder and robbery. General Mkhwanazi was really confused and he didn't know what I was talking about. And I think one of the things he asked me was, how did the docket even get to Pretoria? And I remember him testifying, saying that when he realized he was angry with General Kumalo because he was in the know. General Mkhwanazi was in that meeting of the 5th of March in Parliament. So my assumption was he's always known about this process. So I was really shocked by his response that he didn't know.
Perhaps for the sake of clarity, he did not know about the dockets being transferred to head office on the 27th of March, or he did not know about the dockets now returning to his office. What was he confused about?
First, the dockets being in Pretoria. And secondly, the dockets having to go back to KwaZulu-Natal. And if I may just recall his words, he said that he would not accept those dockets. I think the first thing he said was he really felt affected. And I think passion showed to say that, yeah, no, General you know, I mean, he actually is the actual docket custodian. He didn't know that his dockets were moved to Pretoria. So that for me made sense. And then secondly, he said he won't take the dockets. Even if we bring them, he won't be responsible for them.
Honorable Sokanyile, look at me. Honorable Sokanyile is this one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
She says the microphone is below your cheek.
I apologize. I feel as if I've got a very strong voice. So as I speak, I actually can hear an echo. I apologize for that.
Lieutenant General, you were responding to what was his confusion, and where you left off is at paragraph 61, where you said "Wazawangimoshela ilanga General," and you were explaining where the confusion emanated from.
Yeah. Him being the actual docket custodian in the province, he is the number one cop in the province, was not in the know that the dockets were removed from the province into Pretoria. I remember testifying, sitting in the chair, him saying that he was angry with General Khumalo as to why did he move the dockets. That was the first part. And then the second part was when then he said, I will not take the dockets. So he refused to take them. And then thirdly, he said, even if you bring the dockets to KwaZulu-Natal, I will not be responsible for them. So that is the PC basically saying that if you bring them, you will work with them, work on them with your people, and I won't get involved.
Lieutenant General, did it not raise concern that for a period of almost a month, we are now at 25th of April, 2025, the dockets had been transferred on the 20, at least you became aware that they were now at head office from the 27th of March. So roughly speaking, a month had lapsed. And is it not concerning that a provincial commissioner responsible for dockets, as you said, he's the custodian of the dockets, had no knowledge that 121 dockets had left his office?
Yeah. I was concerned. And I think one of the things I did was to apologize, to say I was not aware. And I think that's where it dawned on me that actually the process was flawed, because the PC should have been the first person to be informed if he's not involved in the process.
So the dockets, as they said at head office on the 27th of March, for a period of a month, they were basically your evidence is that they may have been improperly transferred.
If the PC was not involved, if the PC was not informed, and I think I did say in my statement that for me, the whole process was suspicious.
What would have been the status of dockets that belong to another province under a particular provincial commissioner being at head office without the knowledge of the provincial commissioner? If in fact the process was flawed, as you have testified, what was the status then of the dockets for which you were busy implementing a disbandment plan for?
I want to give an example of a recent incident of yesterday where I got a call from a province requesting that we actually, the family was refusing to work with the police in the province. And it happens a lot of times. So we intervene and we can then look for a team that will take the docket over. It could be at national, it could be in another province, but it is done together with the province or the provincial commissioner. So dockets are not moved without the knowledge of the provincial commissioner. I think about 2 weeks ago, we had a similar matter where we experienced a security breach in one of our critical meetings on operations. And we had to engage the province that based on the security breach, our mitigating action would be removing the docket from the province. So it is not, it's for me, your standard practice of how we move dockets.
Okay. Lieutenant General, once you became aware that there was something quite flawed about the process of the transfer of the dockets, and you were now tasked to be responsible for their transfer back to KZN. In essence, you were dealing with dockets whose status you were not certain of. What did you do? Did you perhaps take any steps to find out who actioned the transfer of the dockets? Because they are now sitting in your office.
Khumalo and myself were the responsible people. And I think where the process was flawed, not only with us, but with the entire value chain, was the deliberate exclusion of the provincial commissioner. And I can safely say that if that didn't happen, these committees wouldn't be sitting. Because the process as it unfolded was flawed. And my first action after General Mkhwanazi was not to call the DNC because I already knew what his sentiments were around the dockets for them being in Pretoria. I called the National Commissioner first to say, General Masamula, I engaged with General Mkhwanazi and this is his feedback on the dockets.
Did you engage the National Commissioner only telephonically or was there anything in writing?
Telephone.
Did you not think to perhaps follow up with something in writing because of the seriousness of what you were dealing with at the time?
I didn't. I think I acted on my feet at the time. Probably, I think as an operative, I opted for strategic distancing. Apology, there's a question from Honorable.
Yes, Honorable Sangone.
Sorry, Advocate, I see it seems like you're moving from this issue. Lieutenant General said the deliberate exclusion of the provincial commissioner. What does she mean by that? Because she said both her and General Khumalo were responsible. So did you deliberately exclude the provincial commissioner?
I wouldn't say so. Now, if I look at the events, as I said earlier, that I was not there in the beginning. So my thinking would have been that the PC, when that letter was disseminated, it would have been informed. But realizing that actually he wasn't. And for me to be bold enough to call him on something that he was not aware of, then I realized, maybe I can use vendor and say, raw kaka. I think we made an error in judgment. All of us in the value chain.
So you blundered.
We definitely planned that.
Rokaka.
Yeah, rokaka. Body water.
Okay.
Just a moment. Honorable Matthys.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Mine is also just to follow up on Honorable Sangon. Do you think we can actually consider this just a blunder? Like outside of it also being procedural that the provincial commissioner, I mean, he literally, I don't know, well, he, in his statement to us, he found out that these files were moved after they had already arrived. And the way you describe this whole process, none of you, even outside of following procedure, just as a what's up, we've been told to take your files. I found that the most bizarre thing that can happen, and to just reduce it to just a blunder. I'm not sure, because even the members, and we also asked the Lieutenant General this question, even the team who put the files together did not say to him, they're coming to collect the files. There's something that someone is not telling us, because it's not possible that someone would have not even if it was procedural that it didn't need to be included, that someone would not whisper and say, yeah, you better follow up on the files. It's not possible. And perhaps you can tell us outside of a blunder, because there has to be another explanation, Lieutenant General. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mades. And I think I'll stand by the fact that I'm not sure whether I can link this to lack of proper communication or maybe the hastiness of the process, but in essence, we were not supposed, all of us, and when I say all of us, from the Minister, National Commissioner, the DNCs, and ourselves, we were not supposed to work outside the Provincial Commission. My assumption was, as he was in Parliament at the time when this was discussed in that slide that General Khumalo presented, so he was in the know. So that's always been my assumption. And realizing that on the day, actually, probably for me, the sirens rang to say, I guess Zulu City no nil. You really made an error in judgment.
So the deliberate reason would be what? To exclude him? Because if you're saying it was just an oversight, because you didn't really answer that.
Yeah.
What was the deliberate reason? Because if you can't use the word deliberate exclusion and then say that it was just a blunder.
I gave examples of us moving dockets between provinces where even the provincial commissioner will be engaged. When I say deliberate, I was not there when the process started. And one of the things I said at some point is that things shouldn't change because the principal has changed. Things shouldn't change, or how we do our processes shouldn't change because we've got a new principal. And I think for that reason, one of the people, if I go back to 2018, I think there are minutes to this effect, and I think they've been declassified, where General Mkhwanazi would be the one to introduce the topic around the PKTT, then General Khumalo would present progress on the dockets to the IMC, which would be the ministers and the DGs who would be there. So for me, it makes operational sense that the starting point, even with the Office of the National Commissioner, should have been also including the PC in the process.
Maybe we must just ask you,
Yeah.
do you think there was a deliberate from the minister? Because you came in with, now that the principal has changed, the processes shouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
Do you think it was the minister that gave indirectly or indirectly said, let's exclude him from this process?
I wouldn't speak on what the minister thought, but the minister gave an instruction. It is up to us, the bureaucrats, to implement. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, we can proceed. Oh, Pangazita.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. In fact, I'm trying to understand because I'm also perturbed by the manner in which General Mkhwanazi was excluded. There was a time when Major General Mkopozi was actually spoken to, forewarned that the files would be coming in his way and that he should actually be prepared to receive them. And apparently he was not around, and a Brigadier Kunene was informed. And he expressly said that he was not prepared to accept those files unless Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is actually informed. So why was he not informed, even at the advice of Brigadier Kunene?
Thank you, Honorable. I can take you back to what I said, that when the handing over was supposed to take place, my intention was to go to the PC. The only reason Ngunene was engaged was because of my workload and I couldn't be able to go to the province. So exclusion didn't start there. This was way into the process.
but he should have been involved from the beginning of the process. And I gave an example of the previous IMC sittings where General Mkhwanazi led the discussions on the PKTT, and I think all of those are outlined in the minutes of those meetings. So you can clearly see the significant role that he played in the process. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Lieutenant General, at page 87 of the bundle, yes, and that is the slide that was presented before the Police Portfolio Committee on the 5th of March. You've testified that General Mkhwanazi was present in that meeting. And when you dealt with your evidence in respect of that meeting, you said it would have started the day before, which is the presentation on the 5th of March. And then the following day, you met with the minister regarding the implementation plan. Before I ask you on this presentation, was General Mkhwanazi also present at the meeting on the 6th of March?
No.
No, okay. Then let's limit it just only to the slide. When you look at the slide, what you testified is that Lieutenant General Khumalo, amongst other issues that he was raising before the Police Portfolio Committee, because it was not a meeting limited only to the disbandment of the PKTT. However, as it was a current issue that was ongoing, he presented on it, and you furnished us with the document as set out at page 87 of the bundle. And that page, basically, even though it does not detail what was canvassed at the meeting before the Portfolio Committee, but it deals with the topics that would have been presented regarding the PKTT. The first one is the Minister of Police issued a directive to the National Commissioner regarding the disestablishment of the National Political Killings Task Team. The second one, various meetings had been held and a detailed progress report submitted to the Minister of Police. The third one that was dealt with is the disestablishment or the disbandment will take a form of a transition from National Political Killings Task Team to a component of serious and violent crimes, murder and robbery unit within Division Detective and Forensic Services. And lastly, the transition will ensure continuity of cases, particularly those that are under investigation and those that are in court. Now, General Mkhwanazi was present. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was present at this meeting on the 5th of March. In your understanding, if you can comment, of course, it's not him that is here giving evidence, but in your understanding, what was this about? What was this meeting before the Portfolio Committee, which dealt with these various aspects of the implementation plan, of the dockets being removed from KZN to Gauteng, of the transition of the cases from one division to the next? What would you say his understanding of this presentation would have been, which was made by Lieutenant General Khumalo? And this is in relation to his surprise, specifically his, that he was surprised that these dockets had now left.
The meeting was online. And I remember General Khumalo, he was actually at his office, but all of us were here in Cape Town. We were sitting in the PC's boardroom. And at some point, General Mkhwanazi was asked by the portfolio chairperson to also give his remarks on specific matters around crime intelligence. I cannot say that he saw this when it was presented, but he was in the meeting. That's all that I can say. So in terms of his consumption and understanding on what General Khumalo was presented, that is actually something that I cannot comment on.
Okay. Just still on the meeting, following the meetings where other participants who are in the meeting are virtual, would you circulate the presentation to the great, or is it just only limited to the presentation within the portfolio
Because of this
committee?
being crime intelligence and also probably to have been deemed classified. So there was no circulation of the presentation. I mean, you can even see clearly that I also only have that copy that relates to what I was discussing, but not the entire presentation.
Indeed. So, I mean, General, it wouldn't be fair to ask you to give a testimony regarding another person, but I'm just asking your understanding, because you both were in the same meeting, and what you now state at paragraph 62 is that he was surprised. So I'm just trying to follow, you know, that submission. You also earlier testified that Lieutenant General Khumalo, even though he now was sitting at the head office in Gauteng, he was still the project manager who was responsible for the PKTT dockets. What is your understanding of his knowledge now that you know that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi had no idea that these dockets had now been transferred to Pretoria? What was Lieutenant General Khumalo's understanding of that process as the custodian? Well, the custodian is Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, but as the person who had oversight as a project manager over the PKTT files, dockets.
I think in relation to your question, I can request that I don't respond because I don't know. I can only account for myself, but in terms of what General Khumalo thought or whether he engaged the PC, I definitely wouldn't know.
So you only informed the National Commissioner regarding Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's surprise element, but you did not engage General Khumalo on it. Is that your testimony?
Okay, if we look at the plan, General Khumalo's role had come to an end. So the dockets were now with me. And in terms of the meetings, for me, the first person to actually inform was the boss of General Mkhwanazi, who is the National Commission.
Okay. Just to close off on this point, so that we can move to the next section. Now that you were aware that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, as the provincial commissioner, was not aware of this process that you were overseeing, you informed the General Masimola, which telephonically, but did you take any steps to look at the reporting lines, who would have transferred the dockets from, who would have prepared the dockets from the KwaZulu-Natal side? Did you ever find out who that person was and what the reason was for not informing the provincial commissioner?
I testified earlier that Lieutenant Colonel Khumalo, who Ndate, testified at the Madlanga Commission that he was the one who prepared the dockets. Now, in relation to the interaction with the province, again, I think I'm in the dark. I wouldn't know. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant General. Just moving on now, still at paragraph 62 of your statement. What advice did you give the National Commissioner? Did the National Commissioner give after hearing about Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's refusal to receive the dockets?
National Commissioner didn't say much. He didn't engage in terms of the reason why. And he just said to me that maybe, to put it bluntly, to say, your boss must decide what to do with those dockets. So in other words, he asked me, to put it polite, to engage with the DNC further on the dockets. And for me, that was what I can term operationally, again, strategic distancing, to say I am not part of this problem.
Okay. So when the National Commissioner said that, he was referring to the DNC, Lieutenant General Sibiya.
When he said your boss should decide, he meant General Sibiya.
Okay. What was his subsequent advice regarding the dockets?
I think that was the end of my discussion with the National Commissioner. So what I did then after that, so for me, it felt like a directive to say, engage General Sibiya further. I then called the DNC, and also now that was the only time that I informed him of General Mkhwana's refusal, as well as the National Commissioner's, I think, to put it politely, advice that he must then direct how these dockets should be dealt with moving forward.
Okay. So at paragraph 64, can you clarify how the dockets were then transferred? Oh, no, we've dealt with that extensively. We can then move on to paragraph 65.
Okay.
Think that you've also dealt with. You can read it, you can perhaps read 64 and 65 into the record, but we've asked you questions before you could get to that part. I think you've clarified it. In case you've left anything out, are you satisfied? Okay.
Maybe I can read 65 into the record. Again, when we said with General Khumalo, we had a roadmap, and I think we had responsibilities. When General Khumalo and Mkhwanazi and General Masemola both actually didn't want anything to do with the dockets. At that moment, in my mind, I'm thinking, what more do I have to do? If he says the DNC must decide, then the DNC being my supervisor, that ends my role in relation to what was in the action plan. I think that I would want to put into the record.
So at paragraph 64, no, we had passed there. I think we're at 66 now. Paragraph 66 of your statement. You say that on the 24th of April, 2025, you received another letter from Lieutenant General Sibiya. What did this letter direct? If we can maybe go to the letter, it is contained at HKS 9, annexure HKS 9, page 93 of the paginated bundle.
So this would have been post the handing over of the docket, and I think General Sibiya wrote to myself and General Khumalo, where, if maybe the committee can allow me, I'll read from paragraph 2, where he said, in compliance with the directive of the Minister of Police on 31 December 2024, and subsequent directives of the matter, you are advised that this process should be finalized by Thursday, 24 April 2025. And this includes the transfer of all dockets closed, currently under investigation, and in court to the Division, Detective and Forensic Services. A final feedback report on the finalization of this process, including confirmation that all task team members have reported back to their station of origin, is awaited on or before Friday, 25 April 2025, and signed.
What was your reaction to the letter? We are at paragraph 68 of the statement.
I would like to take the committee back to the meetings of the 6th of March with the minister and the 27th of March, where a plan was presented. This letter was outside of both meetings, as the meetings agreed that the 114 dockets in court will remain with the PKTT. And also there was no mention, if maybe I can go back. 93.
Page 93.
If I may go back, I think the DNC took it further, and there was no mention on the plan of the closed dockets and dockets in court. The plan said the dockets in court will remain with the team, whilst the docket closed will go back to the station of origin. So the 297 plus 50 odd withdrawn cases already were taken back to the station of origin. Now this instruction says even those dockets must come back to the detectives. And again, in that particular plan, which we presented, the strength of the members was reduced from 96 to 68. And this correspondence say that all task team members must go back to their stations of origin. So it was contrary to what the minister, the district commissioner, deliberated with us on at both meetings of the 5th and the 27th. That's why no action was taken on this letter.
We are now at paragraph 69. Can you confirm the physical location of the PKTT documents from the point of their collection onwards? I think you've dealt with that, but just if you would like to perhaps deal with your actual paragraph 69 in case we left anything out.
It is just to submit to the committee that at no stage were the dockets physically in my office. And as I said, as generals, it is not practice that you keep a docket in your office. The dockets first are the custody of the police station under the provincial commissioner, and only when we recall dockets for specific intervention together with the team can we recall. So these dockets were never in my possession or actually in my office. Thank you.
Okay. At paragraph 70, you deal with the meeting as it was called by Minister Mkhunu on the 23rd of June. What transpired at the meeting of the 23rd of June regarding the PKTT disbandment, and why did you decline further involvement at this stage?
On the 23rd of June, the minister invited the National Commissioner to provide progress to him on the disbandment of the PKTT. General Masemula extended the invite to only General Khumalo and General Sibia. General Sibia then asked me to join him in the meeting. I mean, we respect protocol in the police, and I think I respectfully said that the invite wasn't extended to me, and therefore I wouldn't be able to attend. If the NADCOM wanted me to be there, he would have, included me in the invite. And he did say if I could come up to his office to assist him in writing the report, which I agreed. And upon arriving, he was sitting with General Motsipe already compiling the report. Later on that day, we had a meeting with the minister, with Baksa, to present progress on our partnership. And therefore, I had to excuse myself. But I must say that at this time, after having seen that, actually, it's more like now the ball is in the detective's court. So I actually had no interest in getting involved in the matter. Hence, you will see post the 25th of April, after talking to NADCOM, you won't find any footprint of mine in the dockets. Thank you, I submit.
Thank you, General. That concludes that section that we were on. And now we move on to your views, which you have titled Your Attitude Toward the Disbandment. We are now at section G of your statement, which starts at paragraph 71. Yes.
Sorry. Sure. Mm-hmm. I think in starting this part of the statement, my workings with Minister Mkhunu, I must say it was amongst one of the best I've ever experienced, of a political principal who dedicated his time working on improving the detectives and also trying to get subs to automate, subs to do things in a way that will make it easy for the victims of crime to report and also have a better feeling when they go to police stations. And I think in this regard, one of the biggest programs that he did, and Alcivia did report on this one, where he then said we must have a plan on how to capacitate the detectives. The re-enlistment that we have, I think we were given 353 posts emanating from that submission to the minister, which he approved. Today, we are standing at 287 detectives re-enlisted. I think the 66 remaining, we are now headhunting. So for me, that is one of the good things that came out of his initiatives. And then secondly, the issue of the subs, I think Baksa, I spoke about that. And again, the expansion of your forensic science laboratory footprint, particularly the CSIR. The CSIR has offered subs some of the old labs used during COVID, that we can use them for DNA analysis, particularly your reference samples that actually are your buccal samples or your intelligence samples. So those good things that he did for me really said a lot about progressing the police, you know. But I must say that even on his exit, Minister Kachala and General Masemula are proceeding with those projects. So it's a positive thing. But again, I must say that in relation to him disbanding the political task team, I want to go back to the IMC and use maybe, for lack of a better example, this committee. There is a chairperson who actually is overseeing the structure. He cannot decide to say, but tomorrow you cannot sit. For example, he cannot say General Senthumule cannot come and present herself because the committee must meet, deliberate, and agree. And I think as it started, that's also how it should have ended. There would not have been anything anomalous for the minister to call an emergency IMC to share his concerns around the PKTT and that to be deliberated. And then I am sure that decisions would have been taken. But at least it would have been a consultative process with his colleagues who are part of the JCPS cluster.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. If we can actually just read your paragraph 73, you've made an analogy, but without context, to the people who are listening to you, who are not only limited to this committee. Perhaps if I can then read it into the record. In relation to the disbandment of the PKTT, you say it was your view that the minister should not have unilaterally decided on the disbandment of the PKTT or any operational team for that matter, as these fall within the mandate of the National Commissioner. Now, what you have explained about the chairperson who oversees this committee, the chairperson is actually a member of this committee. Yes. What I'm reading from your paragraph 73 is that, if I have to put it in layman's terms, he had no business getting involved in operational matters. Do you have a comment about that?
I think those are very strong words, so I wouldn't necessarily agree with them.
Let me leave them to you because you are giving evidence.
Maybe, as I have said earlier, that it would not have killed anybody if, for example, an emergency IMC would have been called, or actually if an emergency police meeting would have been called to say, here is a matter, and how do we then go about doing it? And probably the minister said, I think I saw jealous years later that there was an assessment, at least share the assessment with those who are going to be involved, that we can deliberate. And I think that's why when we talk integration, it means that we then bring all our brains together and come up to an amicable solution that will advance the organization.
Let's allow Mokhalaka.
I think the question is, did the minister have a business to do with the disbandment of PKTT or not, according to you? Because that's what we're investigating. The rest of the things you're telling us is not what we're here for. We want to, or put differently. Do you think it's a political interference for a minister to write a letter on the 31st of December disbanding the PKTT without consulting the top management of the police?
I will respond in the affirmative. Thank you, Chair. Which is a yes, Honorable Mateus. Thank you.
I think you've answered the question, but I wanted to also give you an opportunity to expand on, because political interference and that we are investigating is a conclusion, but we have to still deal with the facts. And you say here that it did not fall within his mandate as it was operational. Would you like to expand on that?
I think one of the questions that came, I can't remember whether it's from Honorable James, related to whether the minister had to involve General Mukwanas. I think it was from Honorable, I'll say Mbangazita, for not to offend the same Mwango. Ngiyabonga, Honorable Sangon. The minister could not have involved any operational person, but the minister had an obligation to call a meeting, whether with the IMC or with the substance management involved in such matters. And then there was a discussion, but he could not sit alone and then make those decisions. So for me, operationally, I think, for lack of a better word, I think he overreached. The intentions might have been good, but I think the process was flawed. Okay.
We will take the following two hands. We'll start with Honorable Matthias, followed by Honorable Ngola.
Clarity again. IMC, when the minister was appointed as police minister, did it sit at all? Because he's supposed to chair it. Did it have at least one meeting?
In my knowledge, it never sat. I think the minister arrived around July, and I think the instruction was issued in December, but I've never heard of any IMC sitting.
Did anyone alert the minister that might be one? Did anyone alert the minister that there's this IMC? Did you think in your opinion that he knew that there was an IMC, but he was in the cabinet before, so there was no meeting, no any engagement at all?
Even just beyond talking about the IMC, within your JCPS, I think the minister has also engaged on such topics at that level. But I know that, for example, that IMC never sat.
Okay.
And if it did sit, I was not invited.
Okay. And then where would we get the minutes for the IMC meetings prior to?
I know that they were declassified. I think we can actually request them from the National Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Honorable Ngola.
Thank you, Chair. I'm picking up from where Honorable Maltese left. Was there would have been a serious discussion and a serious contradicting sentiments on whether the IMC was still in existence in December 2024. So if you suggest that the IMC should have been consulted before the decision. So the question that follows that is, was the IMC in existence in December 2024?
Thank you and good afternoon, Honorable Ngola. Hangun Bulis.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Thank you very much. The fact that the task team is in existence, it means that the IMC is in existence because the team of the DGs report to the ministers. And I want to make another example with the, I think it's Operation Bamba in the Eastern Cape of taxi violence, where the Minister Mkhunu, actually involved the premier, the MECs responsible for security in the province. And in that particular meeting, those meetings sat with the deputy ministers and issues were discussed, but the DGs were responsible for implementation. It doesn't mean that because the minister is no longer there, that initiative doesn't exist. Because remember, it is a government initiative in dealing with a specific topical problem of crime, and ours is to enter into a normalization and stabilization phase through these task teams. Thank you, Chair.
Kawaza.
Thank you, Chairperson. Lieutenant General, we are now at, because you have now dealt with the IMC aspect of the step that the minister could have taken by approaching or calling an IMC meeting. At paragraph 74, that's where you deal with that. At paragraph 76 of your statement, you stated that the establishing such a team is a complicated process. Can you explain why and what are the potential consequences of not handling it properly?
If I may respond to this using an example. Decommissioning a team cannot be done in one day or in 1 week, because within that team, you've got diverse competencies. We've got 5 pillars. So you would have crime intelligence, you would have your visible policing that's proactive, you will have your combat. Those are the people like the TRT, the NIU, those who actually protect the teams when they go to investigate, but also do your tracking and tracing. You've got the detective, that's the investigation or the reactive element. And then you've got communication. So to decommission, it means that all these teams must cease to exist. Now, in relation to the detectives, so when you intervene, you generate dockets or investigations. And by the time you decommission, those investigations could be still ongoing. I want to give an example in one of the provinces. I think it happened, last year, where the team was decommissioned or actually reduced. However, because the team carried 200 and odd dockets, we then had to request through the NCCF, which is the National Crime Combating Forum, Chairperson General Musigidi, for extension. So it disrupts actually ongoing work. That's why you cannot just disband. It's a complex process that involves a lot of other role players.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. At paragraph 77 of your statement, you've in part dealt with this elsewhere in your testimony, but I would like to address it here. I'm more interested in asking the latter question. You highlighted that the deliberate exclusion of the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal in the disbandment process. You've dealt with the question was, why do you say he was excluded? But my question before you now is, what was the impact of that exclusion, if he was in fact excluded?
Need I say more? I'm sitting here today to account to the public on what happened. Thank you.
General, if you can just perhaps expand on what you mean by that.
I am basically saying that the exclusion of the PC led us to where we are today. Had the PC been involved and being part of the process, I think the outcome would have been different. And I am not saying this because General Mkwanas. I'm saying this because it is the process in the police that when it comes to moving the dockets, the PC needs to be engaged. So I don't want to attach it to a person, but to a process. Thank you.
General, this section now, we've now concluded the section that deals with all your evidence in relation to the disbandment of the PKTT, the implementation plan that was developed by you and Lieutenant General Khumalo. Now that we are closing off this section, I would like to offer you an opportunity if you have any further comments in respect of the PKTT, your role within the PKTT, the steps that you took up until the point at which the dockets were transferred. Before you respond to that, can I just ask the question, because your statement does end quite abruptly. Were the dockets transferred and were they received by General Mkhwanazi?
I think post our engagement, I know that I was no longer involved, but the dockets eventually found their way back into KwaZulu-Natal, into the PKTT. And I think post that, in terms of now, I think my workings with the team moving forward, I work very closely with the team of General Khumalo and Colonel Khumalo, particularly in facilitating the movement of dockets that would link to what they're investigating.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. I would like to give you an opportunity now, if you have any further comment regarding the process of PKTTs.
No, thank you.
Okay, we now, Chairperson, we will now deal with the next section, which relates to responding to Advocate Johnson for the testimony. The section from here on does not relate to anything about the disbandment of the PKTT. Would this be an opportune time to break, or would you like to proceed? We can finalize the next section by 1 o'clock, but we won't be completely done with the evidence.
What does that mean? Because we have allocated you 3 hours.
Chairperson, if I can be afforded up until 1:30, we should conclude by 1:30.
Everything.
Yes, what remains of the statement. We have about 12 pages of the statement left.
So you say that the evidence that should be concluded
Indeed.
needs between now and 13:30. Is that what you're saying?
I can attempt. I think I need a little bit longer than that, perhaps a full hour to do justice to the statement, because the issues that we now are going to deal with are responding to what the allegations that have been made, which either need to be corrected or need a response from Lieutenant General Senthumule.
What I want to check is, you have said that you need 3 hours to lead evidence. So we started at 10, and by 1, it must be done. That's why I'm asking you now, are we still within that time that you promised us?
Chairperson, I think we are still within the time that I promised, given the fact that there are questions of clarity that come from members which are unnecessary, but in dealing with those questions of clarity, it does set us slightly back. We don't have much more to go, but I wouldn't want to say 45 minutes and rush through the statement. We are nearly there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Malema, Honorable Skosana.
Thanks, Chair. I've been asking myself, what type of strictness do you apply? Because when you give us 20 minutes and 20 minutes finishes, you'll be the one, stop there, stop answering. If you see my mic up, it's up. But on people who are supposed to be professional, trained to do this job, you don't apply that. We are not trained to do this thing. Actually, we are trained for speaking. It's our job. We get paid for that. You stop us for doing our job. But the people who are trained to be professional, And the excuse that we come in between, I mean, we didn't take much time, really. So you don't apply that strictness. And I've been asking myself, what criteria does he use? Because when it comes to us, you can't even go 21 minutes. But these ones can say 3 hours, 4 hours, and then they can cost 7 hours. And then you say, no, let's give them more. And then even after we finish, you still give them more.
No, the thing is, honorable members, you have requested me to allow you to interject during the presentation of evidence. And it has been happening from the day we started. But the reason why I'm very strict with the time that is allocated to you is that when we start, I make a proposal here to say, today, I'm proposing to give you 20 minutes, all of you agree. Or I say today you will have 30 minutes, like today you are going to have 30 minutes. And you all agree. So once you agree to that, my understanding is that is a free consent. And I'm going to apply the rules exactly that way. Honorable Skosan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to find out, I'm a bit lost when it says we are finished with the issue of PKTT. Are we still going to discuss these matters with the witness, the one is talking about, or is something else which emanated perhaps from Madlanga or whatever? Or is it something, she's not finished with this submission?
It's not emanating from Madlanga.
I'm sorry?
Remember, there was a witness from ADHOC who came here before.
Yes, ADHOC, yes.
Yeah. So the general feels that there are matters that were presented before you.
Yes.
By the witness from ADHOC, and she will also love to be afforded an opportunity.
So that matter will take 45 minutes?
Yeah, so we are going to give them until 13:30.
Okay.
To conclude. Can we go ahead, Kawaza?
Thank you, Chairperson. Lieutenant General, we are now at paragraph 78 of your statement. When you testified earlier, you said that you would be dealing with some of Advocate Johnson's testimony which pertains to you or your office. Okay. At paragraph 78, can you recount the details of the WhatsApp call you received from Advocate Johnson on 6 December 2024?
Before I respond, Chairperson, I would like to put context that this is in relation to the 4 Orlando dockets, 3 Orlando dockets and 1 Villera dockets that were requested by Advocate Johnson from General Jacobs to actually go to IDEC. So to start with the testimony, on the 6th of December 2024, at 15:08, I received a WhatsApp call from Advocate Johnson, who requested, and I want to underline, my intervention in relation to IDEC dockets, which were kept in General Jacobs' safe, which will be Divisional Commissioner Inspectorate. And I think I paused to mention at this point that at the time this call was made, General Jacobs was the appointed chairperson of the NAC Joint Committee on ESCOM that was investigating maleficence that affected the performance of the utility. So in my mind, these dockets had to do with state capture because the specific mandate of IDEC, as outlined in Section 28 of the NPA Act, is that they will deal with serious complex and serious and complex economic crimes. And I think the first thing was, why would General Jacobs keep the dockets in his safe? And this is, again, per protocol. I've got an annexure here that comes from his environment that says this is not the practice that we promote. generals cannot keep dockets in there. Even if we work on them, we must give them back to investigators. And I'm not necessarily saying that he did something wrong. So my engagement was on specific that as the head of detectives, I had to intervene to allow IDEC to do their investigations. And bearing in mind that neither General Jacobs or Advocate Johnson specified what these dockets were all about. One of the provisions in that section says that it is a criminal offense for the director of IDEC to actually inform people about investigations that they are doing. I think that's what I would like. Should I proceed? I think for the sake of time.
Fine. So General, Lieutenant General.
Maybe let me add that I then, General Jacobs was after I received the 2 letters from Advocate Johnson.
Lieutenant General, I need to take you to the letters. So those letters are contained at Annexure 13. They start Annexure HKS 13, and they start at page 96. Until page 100. So page 96 is the email from, you can speak to that email and then you can speak, yeah.
Maybe before we get to the email that Advocate Johnson then specified to me that they followed process in relation to getting the dockets. They engaged the DPC General Khumalo, who is responsible for crime detection in Gauteng. And I asked her to put that specific instruction or actually engagement in the letter, because that is the only provision on which I can be able to intervene. And she did so. And as you can see, the email was sent on the 6th of December, Friday at 15:39. And she attached 2 letters. The 2 letters, the first one on page 97 is addressed to me, where she is requesting my intervention to get the 4 dockets, as I have mentioned. And in paragraph 4, she mentioned that General Khumalo advised her team to collect the dockets from the detective commander at Viliria. And when they arrived, the dockets were with the DPCI. They went to the DPCI. The DPCI didn't have the dockets, but those were said to be kept in the safe of General Jacobs.
Perhaps for this, to take it one step at a time. You have now testified that you were requested to provide these dockets. You are not in the position to ask what is the purpose of these dockets being retrieved, because there are provisions that prohibit that. And at page 97 of the bundle, which is part of HKS 13, is a letter addressed to you. Who is that letter from?
It's from Advocate Johnson.
From Advocate Johnson. And what is the purpose of the letter? What is the subject line on?
The subject line is the request for case dockets, and these are the Orlando dockets.
Okay. At paragraph 2, the dockets are set out that are requested. Would you like to comment on the fact that there are 3 dockets mentioned in the subject line and that she had contacted you about? And why are there now 4 dockets at paragraph 2?
I can only say maybe it was an omission from their side, because even when she spoke to me, spoke about 4 dockets.
Okay. When you are requested dockets of this nature, are there reporting lines? Who else would have to be involved when a docket from Gauteng is being requested from your office?
It's either the PC or the DPC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is the PC, Provincial Commissioner?
That's General Mtombe.
I'm asking about the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng. Who?
It's General Mtombe.
Okay. In this letter, at paragraph 4, it states that officials were advised by Major General Khumalo to collect these dockets from Detective Commander at Villiera SAPS? Who is Major General Khumalo?
Major General Khumalo is the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, deputizing Mtombeni, responsible for crime detection.
Okay. So this instruction, as per paragraph 4, would have come from Major General Khumalo. Okay. On the next page, it's the letter is signed 6 December, which is as set out in your statement. On the next page is a letter that looks exactly like the one that we have just read. But who is this letter addressed to?
This letter, which was attached to the email on my letter, was addressed to the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Crime Detection General Khumalo.
Okay. And the letter relates to, what is the subject line?
It's still the same. Exactly. It's a copy and paste.
Okay. At paragraph 3, can you read that request into the record?
This office requests the original dockets as a matter of agency.
And that was the request to Major General Khumalo. And that it is dated the 6th of December, exactly like your letter was addressed the 6th of December. You can then continue at paragraph 82 of your statement.
Based on these two letters, then I engaged General Jacobs and informed him of the request for those dockets. And I need to mention, Chairperson, that I am not General Jacobs' supervisor. In actual fact, in terms of the rank, he's my senior because he was appointed in 20, I think, way before me. So in talking to him, it was in my capacity as the DevCom detectives. I'm saying this because at the committee it was said that I am his supervisor. I am not. On the contrary, actually, he would have been my senior. And then we spoke about the dockets, that actually he should hand over the dockets. Advocate Johnson mentioned that he mustn't, interfere with criminal matters, and my thinking was that they could even charge him for defeating the ends of justice. And again, at this time, neither of them, not Jacobs, not Advocate Johnson, specified what these dockets were in relation to, and they were not bound by law to do that. I only got to know that these dockets were in relation to the arrest of General Khumalo when General Mkhwanazi called me. I remember I was from overseas on the 26th of July, Saturday, and asked me if I knew that these dockets were in relation, or actually these are the dockets that led to the arrest of General Khumalo and others. And I was totally shocked. At that point in time, I felt the need to then inform National Commissioner to say, actually, this is the email that came from Advocate Johnson. At that time, if I may mention it here, advocate that the National Commissioner looked at the time at which the dockets were requested and said to me that this was at the time when the PKTT team was conducting a takedown operation at Senthumule home. So he drew that inference, but we didn't discuss the matter further.
At the next section, you deal with, what we had not quite dealt with is, why were these dockets being requested from you and not from Lieutenant General Jacobs? Why were they not asked? Why did Advocate Johnson not directly request these from Jacobs?
The custodian from the province already according to Johnson, gave a go-ahead. So the next person to intervene is Deshina.
Where was Jacobs, is the question.
He was the DevCom inspectorate, but responsible for that ESCOM project.
So he was away at the ESCOM project, and this is the reason why they were being requested from you.
That's the reason why I thought, yeah.
Okay. If we can now go to paragraph 84. Paragraph 84 of your statement and 84 and 85 deal with the legal opinion.
As I said, Chairperson, that my coming here was to clarify issues. One of the issues raised was that if there was already work done on the dockets, why would I have given General Jacobs a request to hand them over? And this is specifically because at the time of my intervention, there was nothing in writing, no information to me that these dockets were being worked on. And as you can see, the final letter signed to Inspectorate was the 11th of December, 2024, and this was post my intervention on the dockets matter. So at the time, again, I think, Honorable Sangoni is not here. It was not at my disposal.
At Annexure HKS 14, which starts at page 101 of the bundle, you attach a document when dealing with that section. It is an information note. Could you comment on this note? What was the purpose of attaching it in this section?
In relation to the relevance to my testimony, I won't go into the contents. I will just talk about the dates. The date at which the intervention took place was the 6th, and the date on which the legal opinion was signed is the 11th. So which means it was signed after the intervention was requested.
Okay. From paragraph 86 to 89, you deal with the challenges you faced post the testimony of Advocate Johnson. What were these challenges?
I followed the proceedings, and I think when Advocate Johnson was asked by Advocate Arendse, Senior Counsel Arendse, that they took 7 dockets, and I think her response was in the affirmative. And my recollection was, but we only gave 4 dockets, then why would they take 7 dockets? So that was the first challenge I had with her testimony, and it's something that then post, I think she made a request to come and see me. We discussed, and I asked that she actually submit a supplementary affidavit clarifying the discrepancy between the dockets requested versus the dockets taken.
Okay. At paragraph 88, you engaged Major General Khumalo regarding his involvement in the IDHOC, with IDHOC on these documents. We've read the letter which showed that Major General Khumalo was involved. What was his response? To that effect, you've annexed a document at HKX 15, which can be found at page 108 of the bundle. 108.
I think during Advocate's testimony in her engagement with Honorable Sauls, I think the issue of this letter of General Khumalo came in, and Advocate Johnson didn't seem to be forthcoming on the letter. I then engaged General Khumalo to actually ask his engagement with IDHOC that led to him saying that they can come and get the dockets. And to my surprise, General Khumalo informed me that he has never had any engagement with Advocate Johnson nor anybody from IDHOC on these dockets. And therefore, this denial for me implied that the letter as submitted by Advocate Johnson did not represent General Khumalo's sentiment. Again, in my discussion with Advocate Johnson, I did clarify the matters to say that she will then have to provide a supplementary affidavit to clarify the matters as raised.
Okay.
You were not here, Honorable Sangon. I remember at some point, and I think when you said no, General Senthumule interfered, I'm like, in my whole life, this is for the first time I hear that about me. And I think it's what prompted me to provide response and a perspective to the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant General Senthumule. So you've attached Annexure 15 in support of the fact that Major General Khumalo was not involved in the IDHOC investigation as it was stated before this committee.
Yes.
Okay. And the statement, if just for the sake of completion, at page 109 is dated the 26th of February, 2026.
Yes.
Okay. We now move on to the next section. This section, the heading does not necessarily speak to the heading of this section is allegations raised by Lieutenant General Sibiya during his testimony at Madlanga. The allegations that were made speak to some of the work that we are doing as part of this committee that we are investigating, and that is specifically infiltration of law enforcement by civilians. And so the first allegation that you talk about is that perhaps I can just ask you directly, do you know Mr. Vusimuzi Matlala?
I can say safely before this platform, I do not know Mr. Matlala. I think I have seen Mr. Matlala at General Sibiya's party in September, and I spoke to him once when we were asking for sponsorship. I think that also I'll cover. I don't have a relationship. We live in time of technology where we can triangulate. And I had said before, and I said again, I can be triangulated. I don't know Mr. Matlala.
Okay.
Neither does he know me.
That you set out at paragraph 91, but we have to, for the sake of clarification, perhaps distinguish between knowing someone and having met somebody. You mentioned General Sibiya's party. What is the purpose of mentioning General Sibiya's party, and when was it? And do you want, if you can perhaps just give
maybe I must start by mentioning that General Sibiya is a person who likes to host parties. And at these parties, it's not only me who's invited. He invites all of us, from the National Commissioner, General Kumalo himself. I remember at one party we were sitting together, General Musikidi, General Nkua, General Mamuteti, so he invites the generals. And I think in the spirit of building a team, we would attend those parties. But on the specific one in September, it was myself, General Tema. General Tema is the former head of basic police training. I know General Shibiri was there. I think General Fani also was there, but I didn't see him for long. And I know there was Advocate Chauke as well, who was there because he was introduced to me. It was for the first time that I met him at that party by General Sibiya. At that party, General Tema was sitting with me. General Tema is a friend of mine, and who will come if she's called to attest that on that specific day, because of my on and off, General Sibiya and I were like on and off. Sometimes we are good, sometimes we are like extremely not good. So I said to her, I don't want to go alone. I've never gone alone. I always take my sister or take General Mamuteti sometimes. So both were not available. General Tema came with me. And on that specific day, as we were sitting, a lady dressed in white came to join us. And General Tema said to me, this is Tsakane Matlala, and she used to be Dr. Pet's mother's driver. So we met, we sat the three of us. Later on, I think Mr. Matlala was standing, then she showed me that that's the husband of Tsakane, Mr. Matlala, not giving a name. And nobody introduced me to him. So
was this the first time that you had learned of his
yes,
of his name?
Even seeing him, not meeting him, it was for the first time. And he was standing, I think, just close to the swimming pool.
Okay. At paragraph 96 of your statement, you say that you only then got to know his full name.
Yeah.
When General Tema shared his details. What were the circumstances of General Tema sharing his details after that pointing out session?
Before I get there, I need to clarify this. I believe in constitutionalism. And I think one of the things that key principles there is nobody's above the law, and as public officials, we are accountable. So in this platform, I have no reason to deny knowing a person. You know, I want to just clarify that part. And then secondly, and as we were busy planning our awards, we then had issues with the sponsor, particularly for my award, the DevCom's awards and the DNC's awards. So
Perhaps, Lieutenant General, I really apologize for interjecting. What we did not set out is the timing of the party, Lieutenant General Sibiya's party. When were you invited to this party? I mean, not when were you invited, when did you attend this party?
It was in September 2024. I can't remember the date. Yes.
You may proceed.
Yes. And, okay.
I wanted to make a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
You meet a person at the party, a lady is wearing white, you are shown some stranger across the pool, that guy is Mr. Matlala. And you remember that. Like, I mean, someone should have said to you, is Mr. Matlala for the name to ring bell. Someone can just say to me, that's so and so. And then I pass. And then I get asked about a person. Oh, I was told this so and so 6 months, 8 months after that. Because if it's not somebody who's relevant or significant, there's no way you can be told this is so and so. And you remember their names after so many months after being introduced, even from a distance. When they said that's Mr. Matlala and this is Mr. Matlala's wife, what was discussed? What made it so special for you to memorize that name to an extent that you can even remember it and even where you were sitting on that day?
Thank you, Honorable Malem. I want to start it from scratch again. So we went into a party. We went to sit. I think there were people everywhere. And this lady came to join us. General Tema knows this lady. And she introduces her to me as Tsakane Matlala and specifies that this lady used to be Dr. Pat's mother's driver. That's the context. And as we were sitting and chatting, and out of the blue, she says to me, there's the husband of Tsakane, Mr. Matlala. So there was no discussion, there was no interest. And as I said that, Mr. Malema, I do believe in constitutionalism, that nobody is above the law. So I wouldn't come to this committee and say something that isn't and make it that it is. There was no discussion. On that specific day, we sat in one corner and we left. So there was no engagement. Nobody, unlike Advocate Chauke, who was sitting close to us, General Sibiya came and introduced me to him. But on this one, that's how it panned out. I submit, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, let's proceed.
Lieutenant General Senthumule, you were now explaining when that General Tema subsequently forwarded Mr. Matlala's details to you. What were the circumstances surrounding this? What was the purpose of her sending these details to you?
General Tema and I are very close. So we actually meet over the weekends and sometimes even during the week. She had just resigned and I expressed to her that we actually are struggling, and it's not the first time that she would do that, with sponsors for our awards. So in the award ceremony, you will then have a special category that is actually based on the discretion either of the National Commissioner, the Provincial Commissioner, the DNC, or the DevCom. So for that category, we didn't have a sponsor. And she suggested to me that I approach Mr. Matlala, and she gave me his name on that day and said it's Vosi Matlala, and she gave me the number, the details.
Okay. At paragraph 97 of your statement.
Maybe if I may add that General Tema is prepared to put in a statement in support of what I say. Under oath, I may add.
Thank you, Lieutenant General Senthumule. At paragraph 97 of your statement, you set out the circumstances that you have just related.
Sorry, Advocate. I was saying we shouldn't miss that acting chair. But we should seek confirmatory affidavit from advocate, from
General
General Tema, yes.
That's not a doubt, Malema. Thank you. We can proceed.
Thank you, Acting Chair.
You may proceed. Paragraph 97, is your response fully covered?
As the divisional commissioner, if you are hosting awards, you don't personally invite people. The people are invited through the LOC chairperson and the people who are just dealing with the guest list. So in this regard, General Manamela was the LOC chairperson, and for that reason, because of the sponsorship which happened after the 27th, I think, then I asked her to also extend an invite to Mr. Matlala and his wife.
I think we've jumped a step. Before you get to invite Mr. Matlala as a sponsor, how did you then approach him? The question was lost at the place where General Tema, Major General Tema has now forwarded his personal details. Is it the norm within SAPS that you would approach service providers to assist with awards for the SAPS? Perhaps you can explain that.
Thank you. Through the chairperson, Chair, if you may, Acting Chair, if you may allow me. We are following allegations. I think what you are asking is covered in the next allegation. That is the issue of the sponsorship. So on this one, he says, I deny knowing Mr. Matlala, yet I invited him. Yeah, so the one of how then I got to contact him is covered in the next allegation, which says that we accepted a sponsor from Mr. Matlala, from Medicare 24.
Yes, Lieutenant General, I know we're not necessarily following the sequence as set out in your statement, but we're following your evidence chronologically. Because you would have had to approach him for sponsorship before you invite him. So if we can just follow that chronological sequence.
Post General Tema giving me the details, there was an LOC meeting. I think we were a few days to the event, and General Manamela came into my office. We're still discussing the issue of sponsorship. And in her presence, I then said that General Tema had said we can approach this Mr. Matlala. And I said he works for Mediclinic. General Manamela, my staff officer, who's my head of office, was with me at the time. And General Manamela said, no, it is called Medicare 24. So I asked that then we write a letter as per the National Instruction 6 of 2018 that regulates protocols on donations. And that letter is also annexed on the 22nd of November under my signature, was then sent to General Fani, who's our Divisional Commissioner, Supply Chain Management. This is the protocol that we apply to getting a sponsorship. That letter was sent on the 22nd. On the 27th of November, all of these are...
General, before you move on, we just need to make sure that everybody is on the same page about the letter you're talking about.
Okay.
The letter is annexed as... it's marked Annexure HKS 16, and it can be found at page 110 of the paginated bundle.
The response for our request was then submitted from supply chain on the 27th of November, and attached to the response, it's like a vetting form that indicates that none of the identified companies are currently under evaluation and may therefore be approached for donations, and it is signed by General Fani on the 25th. I'm not sure it's signed, but it's signed on the 25th of November, 2024.
Now, that letter is Annexure HKS 17,
yes,
which is at page 111 of the paginated bundle. The signature you are talking about that you're referring to, which you say was signed by Lieutenant General Fani, is at the bottom of the page, and it is dated 27 November 2025.
2024.
2024.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yes, because in the body of the email, it talks about a letter dated 2024. the other year. It's just not clear.
Okay.
Okay. So if we pause there, that letter, what does it actually address? What does it address?
It actually then gives you authority to approach a sponsor. So you don't approach a sponsor prior that approval.
Okay.
Yes.
Prior to this celebration that was or a party that was at Lieutenant General Thibia's house, you testified that you had not seen, because you say you still maintain you don't know Mr. Matlala, but he was pointed out to you. So prior, this engagement at this party where he was then pointed out to you, you had no idea that he was actually a service provider at SAPS.
No.
So why would you approach a person that you would have met a month earlier as a sponsor?
General Tema was the head basic police training. And I think this is where they do the assessments for trainees. And I suppose that's where Mr. Matlala's contract would have been whether accepted or being dealt with. So as a detective, I had no clue on that particular contract, but also I had no clue on what his services were. Only that he was a service provider for SAPS, and therefore General Tema said maybe we can approach him to sponsor.
And although you had not met him and you did not know him, had you heard of him? As a person in Pretoria, in Gauteng, had you heard of the name Vusimuzi Cat Matlala?
No.
You'd never?
No. Okay. And I think this is where I'm a proponent for counterintelligence, Honorable Malema. Sometimes we say things, but if push comes to shove, Honorable James mentioned once in this committee that maybe you should have forensic investigators, because we'll come here, say things, deny and refute and whatever. If push comes to shove, some of us must be taken for polygraph so that we can actually test what we are saying. By the way, I'm a proponent of defensive counterintelligence, so I do believe that it's a method that works. Thank you.
But some of you are trained to pass polygraph.
I wouldn't talk about the deceivers. I think I would speak for myself as a proponent for ethical conduct within the public service. I think those who are trained should not even be in the environment, Honorable Malema. That's why we've got problems today. Thank you.
Let's hear Pangazita.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to actually, join the dots here. The general actually has just told us that there has never been any, even physical, interaction with Mr. Matlala. Mm. But she goes on to actually ask him for a sponsorship. And secondly, she goes on to drop him a call. Where did she get the number for Mr. Matlala from? What did Matlala say? I mean, whom was he talking to? Matlala, in his mind, how would he know that he's talking to whom he is talking to if they had not met anyway? And actually ask for a sponsorship. It's a big thing to ask for a sponsorship. It means that you must have actually had some interaction with me for you to be courageous enough to approach me for a sponsorship. So if you have not met with me, you have not spoken to me, but suddenly you drop a call, you ask for sponsorship, something is not adding up for me, at least.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to respond to Honorable Mwango, and I want to refer you to paragraph 105 of my statement, that maybe starting with the numbers that I used were given to me by General Tema. Hence, I'm saying that a confirmatory affidavit can be provided in this regard. General Tema was the head of basic policing, so she would have come across Mr. Matlala as a service provider. So that's where it basically came from. So she gave me the detail, and she's the one who proposed that actually maybe we can approach him. Upon getting the approval from supply chain, I called him with my caller ID visible, so he would have my number. And I introduced myself and told him where I got his numbers from and told him the brief of the call. And in that call, I did say that actually we would like, if it's possible for them to sponsor for the DevCom and the DNC's awards. That's basically how it took place. And in response, he said to me, it's fine, they can sponsor, but somebody from his office will call me. I think you'll see in the emails, I was called by a Mr. James Murray. Mr. Murray does indicate that we will speak. Oh, no. Did I say James or say Murray? Sorry.
You said Maria.
Maria.
James.
No, I said, no, Honorable James. The name is James. The surname is Murray. No relation whatsoever to you. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
General, for the sake of completion, perhaps.
Let's say, Honorable Malema, did you want to make a follow-up?
Yes, Chair. I mean, Lieutenant General, in your CV, highly decorated intelligence person. And part of your training is to be aware of the environment you are in, your surrounding, and all of that. It is not believable that you could see Mr. Matlala and not pick it up that there's something different about this guy as an intelligence person. Because Mr. Matlala's presence, I've been to places where Mr. Matlala is. You can't miss him. Because of those 100 bodyguards he was telling us about, and there's just too much activity around him, including of white bodyguards looking after this black man. And there's no way an operative like you, who's trained to handle agents, who's trained to handle agents and knows what is what here, because in your training, by virtue of being that, when your body is sitting, your eyes are everywhere, including at the back in front, because your training includes that. There's no way you didn't notice. There's just something about this guy. And from there, you lose interest completely to want to follow up as to what is actually the story of this guy, because there's something different about him. And then from there, you even ask for sponsorship from him because you're not aware of this kind of a character you're dealing with after you met it for the first time. You shouldn't have made even a follow-up after meeting him for the first time. If you meet him once, Chair, you will not want to have anything to do with him because of what goes around him at that moment, not after, at that moment. So General should have picked it up that there's something with this guy, to even go back to him to ask for sponsorship.
Yeah, no, before you respond, Honorable Sangon.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to call a point of order, and I think this point of order is on you. You are failing us, Chair. We've always agreed that during the leading of evidence, we will ask clarity-seeking questions. Now, the whole day today, you've allowed members to come in, especially Honorable Malema, not asking clarity, and the rest of us are sitting here being very disciplined. The same member complains about the time of the evidence leader and still comes in the additional time that you sought to compensate for the time that we've taken. I really think you need to help us, Chair. We want to hear the evidence of the witness being led by the evidence leader. It's 1:30 now. You are going to say she must stop. But in the last 15 minutes, she's been interrupted again by the member who was complaining. Chairperson, please, can you assist us?
Okay, let me.
If she's looking for me, she will find me.
No, Honorable.
Because I've been asking clarity-seeking questions, items that are
this is
on
wrong.
the agenda.
Honorable Malema.
I've never asked anything new.
It's not a clarity-seeking question. You are following
You are
up.
not the one to determine this.
Now, you're not running this
No, you are not
committee.
going to determine that. The
You're
chair.
not running this committee.
The chair will determine that, not
The
you.
evidence leader is not going to talk when you
But
want
the
to
chairperson is going to decide that, not you. This is not an ANC meeting. This
not
is a
an
committee
EFF gathering
that is going to
either.
be decided by the chair, not
Allow
you.
the chair to chair. You are not
Chairperson,
the chair, Honorable Malema.
You allowed me to make follow-ups. I did exactly that through you.
Are not supposed to
Not
be
through a
following
backdoor arrangement.
clarity-seeking questions. You think none of us have questions that we want to ask, but we're restricting the process.
Through you, Chair. I asked clarity-seeking questions through you. And if she has got nothing to say, she must keep quiet. Because if we have something to say, we'll say it. And we've been saying it through you. I'm not going to be directed by her on when to come in, not to come in. As long as you allow me, I'm going to do that, not her.
Awazel, how much time do you need to conclude evidence?
Chairperson, we are at the tail end. The question that will be posed to the witness now deals with sponsorship. And then the following question, these questions can be asked as individual questions. So I would say I've got 3 questions left. She can speak to them.
Chair, I asked a follow-up question, which needs an answer.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Malema. I think as a trained intelligence officer, I do agree with you fully, and I must say that this was not, at that time, all of these things that we are seeing playing out were not there. And I must say additionally that Mr. Matala didn't come towards me or meet me, and I didn't get to see him. And on that day, I didn't see any bodyguards around him. And if maybe I can say, for me, he was facing the other direction, and he's not a big person. That's all that I saw. But the person that I totally saw was the person I was sitting with, General Tema. Next to her, it was the wife. So I cannot talk more about what I saw. I think for me, it would really fail me because I didn't see him at all. Actually, the first time I saw his picture was on the newspapers when now things started coming up. Thank you, Honorable Malema. Thank you.
Lieutenant,
can I be tempted to take it forward? Maybe, Honorable Malema, a lesson from this would be that I think it's not even about training. It's that as a person, that when actually such things happen, what is the takeaway out from the organization? Particularly when we approach sponsors and we don't know them, that maybe things can be done differently instead of just going through supply chain. Because we are sitting here today, I think because we didn't do our proper diligence individually before we push the back to supply chain. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Lieutenant General, just still on the same topic, you then testified that Mr. Matlala sponsored your awards. At Annexure AKS 18, you deal with the letter from Mr. James Murray. If you can just speak to what was sponsored, how many of those items were sponsored, and how were they distributed?
12 bar fridges were sponsored, and these were specifically for the special awards of the DNC Crime Detective General Sibia and myself, the DEFCON Detective and Forensic Services. Those were delivered after the event because of time, and I think there is a distribution list that is attached here. In our calculation, we made one misnomer. For the Eastern Cape team that received, we counted 3 people and there were only 2. So there was a fridge that was left. And Normally, when such gifts are left, they are kept for the following year. But the DNC, having been new with us, I think General Sibia did a lot in terms of helping us improve performance. So I used my discussion to ask him if, as probably an award from myself, he would take the fridge, and he said yes. That's why then his name will be here.
Is it standard practice that if there is a sponsorship within SAPS for awards, like the sponsor, a service provider has sponsored for a specific purpose, that you would then have a discretion to exercise in whom you then give the left what is remaining to? Should you not be requesting the exact number that you need? Why was there a leftover fridge?
As I said, for example, we thought that there's going to be 4 recipients from the Eastern Cape and only 3. It is the discretion of the divisional commissioner, as you say. You know, I didn't see anything anomalous in acknowledging his efforts in turning the program around. I think for the members of the portfolio committee, they would know that the detective was struggling, and when he was there, I think there was much improvement. So for me, it was just a way of saying thank you, motivating him as my senior to do more.
Okay.
At the time, that was my reasoning.
Okay. Still on questions on Mr. Matlala.
Yes.
This will now cover paragraphs 120 to 128 of your statement. I will just ask the question directly and you can comment. Did Mr. Matlala pay for a Brazilian what is it? BBL,
Yes.
a BBL surgery for you?
If the chair can allow me before I respond, I actually want to stand up. People have been dying to see this BBL. They were expecting Tebogo Tobejane, you know, Faith Nketsi. And I must say, Chair, I've actually had more guys approaching me now over the phone to say, can we go out? So I think everybody wants to test drive. I wouldn't mind standing. BBL. I wouldn't. It has become a national asset, so it must be seen. Before I respond to the question, I'm not sure if you see it. It's there, but I don't see it. Thank you very much.
Actually, one DM of the police showed me your picture and said, what is BBL here?
Exactly my point. But I think, Chairperson, on a serious note now on this particular matter, you said it's paragraph 120, no?
From paragraph 120 of your statement, and the question is, did Mr. Matlala pay for a Brazilian butt lift for you?
Yeah, and I must read this because it was for me a sore point in my career that I could just be taken so low after working so hard to be where I am with my integrity intact up until that moment when somebody thought under oath he could just get away with it. I wish to submit to this committee that it is rather gravely unfortunate that I have to respond to this. And for me, I must say, Mr. Matlala, the cybercrime, you can actually, cyber, what do you call them? Competencies. You can trace the money that I paid for my procedures. And I've given all of those statements as evidence to the evidence leaders. It's available for the committee to see, from my credit card to my check card to Dr. Pett, who actually did my procedures. I'm not shy, honorable members, to say I take care of myself. Being a police officer doesn't mean that you can just give up and people see us. We've got young women who must look at us as leaders, that actually I can do the job. We model the badge. So if I had to do this for myself, Honorable Malema, there are times when I wear that uniform and I carry the firearm and I'm like, no, damn, I look good. You know, there are times where I also, like you, I don't see it, you know, but it's all about my body, my decision, and what I deem fit as a woman at my level with the money that I work hard for, not seeing my kids. If I can give an example to this committee, my son almost committed suicide on Sunday as I was about to come here. I don't know what my kids are going through. He was in ICU for the better part of the week. And I think advocate was there actually at some point talking to me when it happened. So if I take my money to feel better, I'm not going to apologize to anybody. Yes, it can be a laughing stock for a moment. My biggest problem is that it was said under oath by a senior official of the South African Police Services. I do have the dates. I think for the sake of time, Chairperson, the procedure was done on the 16th of October in the afternoon. I went to work, and I took leave. General Sibia is correct because my back had pins. I couldn't sit properly. But I don't think it's something that for me he should have rode on as a man with a badge of honor. And an allegation that he just threw from nowhere to say that Mr. Matlala paid for it. In 2023, Honorable Sangon, I've not even seen Mbangazit. I've not even seen him at the time. And it is paraded on the global platform to say this general who represents this flag that I wear every day. I wear this every day because I represent my people. When I go to Abu Dhabi and I sit, I represent South Africa in terms of diplomacy. I'm not going to be sorry for what I do to look good. And maybe also juxtaposing General Sibia with Brigadier Majeng. I don't even know what Ozempic looks like. You can see Honorable Sangoni, I think I was built for show off. I was not built to be normal. I don't know what Ozempic, for this thing to be paraded and my name to be attached to it. It is rather gravely unfortunate. Lastly, I want to request the committee and the world at large, because I've been getting calls from as far as Paris, from as far as Tanzania, people asking what is going on, that you see these allegations for what they are, with an intent to damage me, my reputation, and also a deliberate attack on my credibility and integrity. I submit, Chair. Thank you.
Lieutenant General, thank you for clarifying. I would like to now ask you to just deal with the final part of your statement. I will ask you just one question and you can speak to that question.
Just before. Thank you, sir. Now that you strongly feel that Sibia lied under oath, as a Lieutenant General, what have you done about it? Because you know lying under oath is a crime. What have you done about it?
Thank you very much, Honorable Malema. Two processes that I'm pursuing. One is legal and the one is criminal. I think I will provide feedback to the committee based on my engagement with my counsel on the two matters. Actually, I am mentioning the fact that he's a senior officer because in my capacity as a woman at that level, the ones who are coming after me shouldn't be afraid that their colleagues will chastise them for things that they think is better for themselves. Thank you, Honorable Malema. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Chair, let me, the evidence leader finish. Let the evidence leader finish, it's fine.
Lieutenant General Senthumule.
There was a hand.
I was saying, Chair, it's fine. I'll come later.
Lieutenant General Senthumule, the last part that I would like to deal with in your evidence, in your statement, is relating to the allegation that you authorized and approved overtime claims for Warrant Officer Monageng and Warrant Officer Segodi in May 2023 without verification that the protection services were allocated or rendered, thus failing to exercise due diligence in ensuring overtime claims were supported by objective proof, that proof was rendered. Do you have any comments to that statement?
I think the video that I got said I employed ghost workers, and it's on TikTok. And I'm thinking, really now, I need to clarify this, Chairperson. Early 2023, the National Commissioner informed me through a telephone call that there was a member, I would call him Captain M, in my division, Detection and Forensic Services, whose life was under threat as he was a witness in a corruption matter in forensic services. And this member required protection. One of the things that happened to the member was that his kids' pictures were taken from school and were sent to him as a threat. And I think he experienced issues from that. Then he was hospitalized. These people unknown, they took the pictures of him and saying to him that they will find him wherever he is. For that reason, I then was asked to ensure that Captain M is protected. In this regard, General Kumalo, who's the head of CI, and General Mushala were engaged. A TRA was conducted, and General Mushala provided security. So those two members were attached throughout the 4 months to Captain M. There is evidence in this regard. The member's wife also could be engaged, Honorable Malema, if I think we need, what did you call it? A confirmatory affidavit. So the security was for them. One of the recommendations from the TRA was that they be relocated or be put into a safe house. However, because the wife is working around Pretoria and the kids go to school in Pretoria, for that reason, the wife felt that actually security that is being provided was enough. So these members were deployed around Captain M 24/7. There's no way where I signed a claim for overtime. The only claim I signed for overtime is for the members who are sitting behind me, who are working in my office. However, for my office and those members, I then signed an overtime application. Before you work overtime, you need to be authorized. So that's the only thing I signed. And the fact that General Sibia then went to open a case of fraud and corruption with no suspect, I think that's what led the matter to be a problem. The National Commissioner was engaged, who actually encouraged us to talk. I think to date, I've not received any report from IPID. I did ask, I think on the 26th of February, and I was told that the matter is under investigation. But as far as I know, I never employed any ghost workers. And also in terms of my work, I will never abuse my office. I think for those who know me, they'll know I don't abuse my office for any reason. Thank you, Chair. I submit.
Thank you, Chairperson. The evidence, the supporting documents that Lieutenant General Senthumule has provided in support of what the submission the evidence she has given can be found from page 137 of the bundle until 163 of the bundle. Thank you very much, Chairperson. This concludes the leading of evidence.
Are you done, Kawaza? Are you done, General Senthumule?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe before we conclude, I actually listened to Advocate Sangoni when General Musikidi was here saying that we should provide at least recommendations. We do, so maybe my second point will note that this also leads to institutional buffering because we don't work, we sit and listen to this deliberation, particularly if they're going to affect us. I think in my recommendations, I said that SAPS ought to use this opportunity to shake the baobab tree. Because obviously, I think there is chaff in the baobab tree. And I think this will be for the purpose of resetting and regeneration. And in other words, what I mean is that we should take a bold step as a country that has significance, consequence, and repercussions for those who are found to be on the adverse. And definitely we can set up the process for SAPS reforms and reposition SAPS as a credible organization, trusted and respected by all. So in other words, this just shouldn't be a process, but it should reset how we take SAPS forward. As a person who was involved in the NSF project, we did research, I think, with Minister Sochu at the time, where we found that actually within SAPS reforms didn't take place. It was only integration. So maybe we need to then say, what is SAPS in serving our people in this democratic dispensation? The second one is that we should leverage on the private sector business ecosystem. As SAPS, we don't have resources. So maybe again, if we rebrand ourselves, I think we'll get more support from the private sector for us to be able to fulfill our mandate. The issue of institutional buffering. Honorable Matthys once asked a question about vetting, and I'm surprised he didn't ask me today, Honorable Matthys, about vetting. Maybe let me address it now. When you get the vetting certificate, you are vetted against a particular function that you are performing. What makes you vulnerable or puts you at risk? But that certificate doesn't give you integrity. Integrity comes from within yourself. Integrity is not defined by declaring that I have integrity. People see it. So in dealing with this problem, I think we need to reset counterintelligence. Honorable Barnard at some point said that this is an intelligence failure. If counterintelligence is strengthened in the way it should be, particularly both offensive and defensive, that will then help us to deal with problems proactively than for us to be where we are today as an organization. I submit, Chair. Thank you.
Advocate Mkiza.
Thank you, Chair. The evidence is concluded. We're done.
Thank you so much. Thank Advocate Mkize. Thank you, General Senthumule. We're now going to take a break. We'll come back at 2:30. May the honorable members stand up and leave the chambers.